Well, this Bumblecott kid wants to debate the metaphysics of metaphysicism. You can argue with him if you want.
Yeah, that's not what I said. I asked if you had an argument against diophysitism.
I have an argument.
Okay, you can die soon.
I talked to him yesterday, but my internet cut out, unfortunately.
Would you guys like to continue?
Yeah, because we ended up getting like talking about your position, and I don't really like have an argument against your position. I was kind of like more so questioning it to see, but I think you gave good questions. That's why I think if you think you have a good argument against my position, I think that would be pretty interesting.
Okay, well, the way I'm gonna argue it depends. Do you take like classical Chalcedonian Christology, or do you hold to enhypostaton? Because yesterday it sounded like you held to enhypostaton.
Yeah, I do.
You hold to enhypostaton?
Yeah.
Okay, so when the flesh is enhypostatized into the divine hypostasis of the Word, is that enhypostatization intrinsic?
Yeah.
Okay. And did the Word intrinsically always have flesh?
Yeah, it depends what you mean by always, because like, yeah, in terms of it's proper to him, and it's part of the identity of the hypostasis. And the hypostasis qua himself never changes, right? It's an act from eternity.
I'm saying,
so it was eternally. Yeah, so the answer is yes. The answer is yes.
The divine Word always had flesh?
Yeah, temporally, because in reality, there's no time to apply to God. So like the sense in which you're asking it doesn't really apply, because you're not asking in terms of like, because I know what you're asking. You're saying like in terms of what you would be saying for your position when you say temporally prior to the union. That's not what I mean. I'm not saying that there was flesh prior to the union. I'm saying that the union was an eternal thing. So there wasn't a time at which the union did not take place. That's why.
I'm not even discussing the primacy of Christ. That's not my contention right now. I get you hold to the primate. That's what you're fleshing out, which is basically that the incarnation had to happen necessarily.
No, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm saying that even if it didn't have to happen, like, because so okay, even if we take that, right? Let's say that Adam never sinned and we never like needed to have Christ die for our sins, right? He still would have incarnated. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about even if he still would have incarnated, that incarnation, whether or not it was necessary, would have happened from eternity, because the very act of God willing to take on a human nature, whether or not that was necessary, will happen from eternity, because God is outside of time. Right, okay.
I think what you're basically saying is just that there's going to be a predestination by foreknowledge. Is this what you're saying?
Not really. I'm just saying
that God foreknows.
Like, it's like, was there a time where Christ wasn't a creator? It's like the same question.
I'm just saying temporally. Did the Word always intrinsically bear flesh temporally?
That question
in John 1:14. Because in John 1:14 it says
the Word didn't even exist in time until he adopted flesh. So that question's incoherent.
What?
There's no. How did the Word doesn't exist within time. He appears within time, but he exists outside of time.
I'm not saying within bounds of time. I'm just saying, all my question is, because you said the Word intrinsically gained flesh. That's what enhypostaton is. That's literally what it means. We're past that. What I'm asking now is that did the Word always intrinsically have this flesh?
Okay. Let me put it like this, because I don't even like what I'm saying isn't even. I don't even really think it's contending with your argument. I'm making a separate point, which is that from God's perspective, like, there is no, he didn't go from one state to another. He eternally willed all of the things that he did, right? Imminently within God. Now, that's why I'm saying that this question
just a predestination
was there a point for God qua himself when he did not have the humanity? That's kind of unintelligible, because God, it doesn't, when you say qua himself and then invoke time, it's unintelligible. So in that sense, no. But I'm gonna grant the sense in which I think you're talking about, which is that, is there, like, in our minds, right, can we distinguish between the Word prior to incarnation and afterwards? Yeah.
No, I'm saying in reality.
Regardless, whatever sense you want to talk about, I'll grant it for the sake of conversation. It still doesn't follow.
Literally, just
It's-
in reality, did the word become flesh at a point in time?
Yeah.
Okay. And would you define, I'll just give a loose definition, or actually, I'll put it this way. Is X gaining Y, would that qualify for change?
Yeah, but in what sense?
Well,
I'm going to grant
it's an
your change,
intrinsic
but it's not the
sense.
change in the right sense, so it's not an issue.
Well, it's already intrinsic because the first question I asked.
Yeah, but not all kinds of intrinsic change is an issue. That's what I'm contending with. And I think
So
that
you're saying, so you believe, just to be clear, you believe God intrinsically changed in the incarnation?
Yeah. That is to say that prior to having the human nature, he didn't have the human nature. And then after he did have the human nature, and the human nature is proper to him in the way that it's proper to me, such that we can say that he's consubstantial. Because to say that we are consubstantial, to say that he's consubstantial to the humanity in the same way that we're consubstantial to the humanity, entails that he relates to the human nature in the same way that I do. And because the human nature is intrinsic and proper to me, it must relate to Christ in that same way. Now, in that sense, we say that the things that are materially ascribable to the person of Christ, the set of those things, that has changed, right? But that's just saying that now he has a human nature that is proper to him. That's not an issue. The question is, what is the sense in which it relates to him? Is it by identity or is it by predication? The divinity relates to him by identity, right? He is the identity of the divinity, but the humanity is predicated to him. And
Wait,
so
who
the
is?
formality, hold on, last point. The formality, what it means, what you're referring to when you say the hypostasis, the word, the divine nature existing as begotten, that the formality, that remains intact and doesn't change. That is the thing that needs to remain intact.
The sense of relation I'm simply speaking is that it's going to be intrinsic. You already granted that God intrinsically changed in the incarnation. I mean, that's literally my argument.
That's what I just
There's
said.
there's a serious issue with that paired with divine immutability. How would you answer that under divine immutability? Because you have to harmonize those two things.
I just told you. Because the set of materially ascribable things to the hypostasis is not the same category as things that you can ascribe to the divinity. Those are two different categories. Because now the hypostasis is composite because he took on a human nature. But the question is whether every sense of the hypostasis being composite is an issue. That's what I'm contending with. I'm saying that the sense of saying material identity, that is not an issue because it doesn't change the humanity or it doesn't change the divinity. The divinity changes the humanity. Change is one way, it's not mutual.
My contention is that there's going to have to be a change in the divinity because as you affirmed, when the word is inhypostatized into the divine word, that's going to be an intrinsic relation. So now you have the word as a whole with a human part. That's going to definitionally entail that the word has now become composite. The word simpliciter.
Yeah, materially, I've granted this, but I'm saying it's not
the
an
whole
issue.
Material versus formal identity. It's a walking contradiction. I'm sorry, but it literally is.
Yeah, how?
Because you're saying, all it's literally saying is that the word is composite intrinsically, but then you're saying in this other like arbitrary sense he's not because I said so.
What
like,
would
that's
make it
literally
not
what
arbitrary?
It is. If you can give an actual account that's substantiated in the fathers which you are binded to. Because anyone can come up with some random position, but this formal versus material identity
right now we're talking
isn't
about
found. It's not found in Damascene. It's not found in
this.
Maximus. It's not found in
maybe
anywhere.
not the language, but that doesn't mean that the concept isn't found there, right?
The concept
is
not
that
there
the
at all.
language that I'm employing sufficiently interprets what they say. Hence your quote that you brought up of Damascene that says that it's constitutive of the hypostasis. I'm saying it's constitutive in this one sense. Unless you're going to show quotes from Damascene and Maximus saying that in every single sense possible, the hypostasis is now composite, or showing that the hypostasis is now composite in his divinity, then my employment may not be as robust. But because of the fact that there is room for nuance in virtue of the fact that they didn't say these things, my language is purely sufficient. I don't know why it wouldn't be.
It's not. This material versus formal identity, this distinction doesn't matter because it's intrinsic either way. The change is intrinsic.
Right, so
like there's no getting around the problem with divine immutability, especially when considering the fathers, like the Neo-Chalcedonian fathers who you hold to, unquestionably, like Damascene and Maximus, they don't teach this. It's not even wording.
Right, that's
It's
what's
the
in
concept.
question. That's what's in question.
That they taught this? They literally didn't. I hate to break it to you. They don't make this distinction whatsoever.
Yeah, but I already interpreted the quotes that you brought up, and they don't contradict me. So that doesn't even raise the probability of your interpretation of them being correct.
Quotes?
But like with the formal constitution, or that it constitutes the hypostasis, I'm saying that all the things that you could bring up to go against my interpretation is compatible. It's just using specific language that helps you to distinguish it. The same way that you would use heterogeneous and homogeneous hypostasis, even though that isn't in the direct fathers, right?
It is. No, it is.
Afterwards.
No, it's in the Cappadocians.
Yeah, but was it using Christology?
Yes. Saint Gregory of Nyssa. Saint Gregory of Nyssa says if you believe there's another heterogeneous nature alongside the divine one, then there has to be two sons. So the fathers always use this language.
That's fine. That's fine. I just threw that point out there. I was wrong on that. Okay, but getting back to the point. Well, you said that the distinction is redundant. It doesn't do anything. Well, one of the things that you would have to do in order to show that that's the case is to be able to refute material identity. Because I'm saying that it changed materially. Hold on. I'm saying it changed materially. Okay, but you're saying the distinction is irrelevant. But I'm saying if the distinction is irrelevant, then it should be a problem either way. But if the distinction distinguishes it in such a way where the change is no longer a problem, then the distinction actually isn't irrelevant. So you have to be able to disprove a material change.
The issue is that what I'm attacking is the view of in hypostaton. What you're fleshing out is entirely foreign to what the Neo-Chalcedonians taught. None of them made this distinction. And all I need,
Leontius of Jerusalem. Okay, I'm literally gonna here. I'm gonna bring you.
All I need for this issue to follow is simply
Leontius of Jerusalem used this exact language. Hold on. What you just said is just not correct.
When it comes to divine immutability, all that's gonna posit is that God cannot intrinsically change.
That does not follow. Qua himself, right? Not qua hypostasis. In the divinity. That's a very ambiguous term, because when you say God,
qua himself, not qua hypostasis.
Like,
there's only a formal distinction,
like within the divine essence.
You can't say that there's. Hold on. Okay, I see what you're saying, but there's only a formal distinction between the essence and the hypostasis. It's not a real distinction. So how does that follow?
What does that mean? I'm saying that the thing that it changes isn't exactly. They're formally distinct, right? So the formality. It's not a real distinction. Hold on. The formality remains the same.
What?
Hypostasis is the underlying reality under which the union comes into place, right? Now you're saying the parts of the thing change the underlying reality, but by definition, underlying realities can't be reduced. It's the underlying reality. How does it follow that the underlying thing that holds the union together is the result of the union? That doesn't make any sense. It's the scope within which the union takes place. That's just like a category.
That would make sense. It would obviously be incoherent as per your view.
How?
Because I'll make this clear. The whole issue you're bringing up. Wait, are you just saying that the divine ousia doesn't become composite in the union, even though the hypostasis becomes composite intrinsically?
Yeah, I'm saying those are not one and the same thing. Those are two distinct categories.
But this isn't coherent. Because the divine hypostasis of the Logos, it's only formally or virtually distinct from the divine ousia. So if you're going to say that the divine hypostasis gained a part while the ousia itself doesn't change, this is either going to imply a real distinction between the divine ousia and the hypostasis of the Word, and that's not possible unless the divine ousia is a species, which is obviously heretical.
Entails that, actually. The formal distinction between... No. There's a formal distinction between...
Yeah, so whatever happens to the divine hypostasis is going to apply to the ousia in some way. Unless you're implying a real distinction.
But it's not intrinsic to him in terms of identity.
What? Intrinsic to the divine hypostasis?
And materially, has gone from one state to another. But all you're saying is that
It's still
you're
intrinsic.
adding. Hold on. All you're saying
Even
is
with
that
this
now
distinction.
he has another thing that is ascribed to him materially. That doesn't therefore mean that the other thing that was previously already intrinsic to him thereby changed in the inclusion of that. That does not follow. The material identity changed insofar as the set, not the things within the set changing. That's a non sequitur. Just because the whole changed doesn't mean the parts changed.
No, that would follow because the things that set, it's only what's it called? It's only formally distinct from the hypostasis. The hypostasis is literally it's the essence existing in a certain way. There's a relative identity invoked. So there's only going to be a formal distinction allowed. The only way you would be able to get out of this,
the thing that remains intact.
Hold on. The only way you would be able to get out of this is to say that the ousia is really distinct from the hypostasis. That would make the ousia a species. You realize that, right?
That has nothing to do with what I'm saying. That's not even required for what I'm saying. The formality between the ousia and the person is my whole point. That formally the hypostasis remains the same. That's the sense in which I'm saying is not a problem. Is the problem, right? If the formality or the hypostasis itself, the mode of subsistence of the word, if that were the thing that changed, yes. But the point is that that's not what we're saying when we say material identity. Material identity, again, material identity can be broken down into two ways, okay? Material identity overall is just talking about the natures that are ascribed to him, okay? Now, if that can be broken down into the way in which the natures are ascribed. One is ascribed by identity, one is ascribed by predication. So all that you're saying is that this person that is identical to the divine essence, and then they're formally distinct in their mode of existence, that is the divinity, okay? And then you have another thing that's predicated it's predicated to the hypostasis, right, which is the foundation. Is that making sense so far? It's predicated to the hypostasis under this category of material identity. All you're saying is that he now has this humanity that's proper to him.
Yeah, but he has it. The divine hypostasis simpliciter has it intrinsically. That's a serious issue.
Yeah, but intrinsically can be broken down in three ways. That's the whole thing I'm getting.
Hold on. In contrast with our view, the word and the flesh are intrinsic parts to the whole of the theandric word. So in that view, the word and flesh are parts to a whole. The word itself, simpliciter, isn't the whole. In the inhypostatic view, the word is the whole. That would entail composition, especially after you answered that first question.
You're just assuming that material composition is an issue. That's the thing that I'm getting.
It's an issue because it's intrinsic to the divine word simpliciter.
Yeah,
and the divine word is only formally distinct from the ousia.
This is circular. Let's write this down, okay? Premise one is what?
I'm not gonna formalize it right now.
I'll help you formalize it. Okay, so you're saying
no, because I'm not gonna have you like nitpick validity.
No, because this genuinely doesn't follow, and that's my whole contention. There's a premise that you're assuming that doesn't follow, and then when I ask you to prove the premise, you just beg the question from the thing 3 steps ago. So and now it has gone down to validity.
It's very clear. Is the difference between the ousia and the hypostasis a real one, or is it?
Yo, hold on. I'm writing out this formality. That's not even relevant to I'm not showing you why.
That is relevant because therefore whatever intrinsically applies to the divine hypostasis simpliciter would apply to the ousia, because they're only formally distinct. There's not a real distinction.
Yeah, that has nothing to do with what I'm saying.
So in reality, they're the same thing. You realize that, right?
Yeah, that's fine. It's predicated to the reality. Because the problem is that you're equivocating on intrinsic. That's the problem.
What?
All you're saying is that prior to the incarnation, the only thing within the set of things we could ascribe to the person intrinsically is the divinity. So prior to the incarnation, those are the same things. That's the only member of the set, right? And then afterwards, you're saying, well, because the set changed, and prior to the set, there was only one part, and therefore it was identical to the set itself. Now that the set changes, those are now the fucking thing in the set changes. That just doesn't follow. You're equating the divinity to the set of material identity. Those are two distinct things.
I'm not even going as far as like sets. What I'm saying is that since the divine hypostasis, well, you're trying to steel man my argument, and you're getting it wrong. I'm not even going that far. I'm saying the divine hypostasis, simpliciter, before the union, like all that, is identical to the essence, relatively. There's a formal distinction. It's not even a real distinction. Therefore, would you agree that whatever happens to the divine hypostasis intrinsically would also apply to the essence? Because they're the same thing in reality. Do you agree that follows? Do you hear me? Bombaclat, do you hear me? Does everyone else hear me? Am I lagging?
I can hear you.
Yeah, yeah.
I can hear you.
I think he's probably lagging.
We can hear you.
Okay, but does that make sense at least? Because the essence and the hypostasis in reality are the same thing. The only distinction between them is a formal one. Therefore, simpliciter, whatever happens to the divine hypostasis intrinsically, is going to apply to the intrinsicality of the divine ousia, because they're the same thing in reality. I mean, that just follows. And then if you're
Yeah,
saying that
hello?
the flesh is now intrinsic to the divine hypostasis, that's going to mean the flesh is intrinsic to the universal of the divine ousia.
Yeah. Can you define intrinsic?
I don't have like a definition off the top of my head. Like it's kind of primitive. I can just look up
I mean,
one.
give me a description of it. Help me to get the idea of what you mean.
Okay, got you. It's just gonna let's see. It's just gonna be something that like belongs naturally to a thing. It makes it like what it is.
Belongs naturally to a thing. What does that mean?
It's gonna constitute like its identity. It's part of what it is.
Yeah, but there are certain things that constitute identity that aren't natural, right?
Well, I'm talking about something being intrinsic, not merely like natural. I'm making
Well,
the
I don't know of
difference
any
between
natures that are extrinsic. Isn't that
in our
Gregory of
view,
Nyssa's entire objection against eunomius, that natures are intrinsic, hence why the divinity is an intrinsic thing and the mode of existence is extrinsic? Wasn't that his whole argument against eunomius?
I'm not sure like what passage you're referring to in specific.
Well, the whole
The
his
distinction I'm
major argument
making,
against eunomius, because eunomius said that only the Father is ase, and aseity is the divinity, right? He reduced the essence of God to aseity, and then he said no, that's a category error because essences are intrinsic. Aseity is an extrinsic mode of existence. That is a category error. That's his
yeah,
whole argument.
aseity is
Now you're saying that
hypostatic.
natures are extrinsic. That's exactly what eunomius said.
What? No, I'm saying that because as per our view, the divine word simpliciter, the human quality is extrinsic to the divine word simpliciter, but the divine word and the human nature are intrinsic to the theandric word. This is the difference. We don't believe that the flesh is intrinsic to the
So
divine word simpliciter, but you do.
what's the way in which Christ relates to humanity such that we can say that he was homoousios? What's the sense in which we're talking about when we
He
say that?
entirely possesses divine divine and human ousia.
Right, but does he fully possesses a human ousia, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So does he possess a human ousia in the same way that we possess one?
It's just being like the properties of the ousia being instantiated in us.
No, does it relate to the subject? Does the predicate of the ousia relate to the subject in the same way in Christ as it does to humans?
And I'm asking, is that just to say that all of the human properties that are in the ousia are being instantiated in that particular subject? If so, then
No, I'm
yes,
saying
obviously.
the way in which it's substantiated and the way in which we describe that instantiation, are those the same?
What are you picking out by that? What do you mean?
The relation between the substance and the person.
Which
You know
is
what relation is?
literally just that the persons are particular of the universal, which bears all of the properties and manifests those properties in reality that the abstract has.
Right. But that's not just what we mean when we say that someone has human nature. We say that they possess human nature, right? And the qualities intrinsically, right? That's what we mean when we say that
Yeah,
somebody possesses something.
the theandric word has human qualities intrinsically. The word simpliciter does not have human qualities
No, no.
intrinsically.
Does he have the human essence intrinsically?
The word the theandric nature?
The thing that we can say has the humanity, Because you're saying there's something that we can't predicate humanity to, which is the word simpliciter. So whenever I'm asking about how the humanity relates, I'm not talking about the sense that doesn't have humanity relating. So the Christ that we
The
can say has
humanity is
humanity,
intrinsic.
what's the
The humanity is intrinsic to the theandric nature. It's not intrinsic to the word
is the
simplicity.
theandric nature personal?
Personal.
Like,
Well, it's
is it a
just as I
person?
said yesterday. It's just going to be a hypostasis, and it's a rational one, so it would be a person.
Yeah. Okay. So let me put it this way: you believe that there's a formal or a virtual distinction. Which one between the essence and
I
person, qua the word
say a
itself?
formal distinction. I just prefer
Okay.
the SCOTUS like definitions.
Yeah. So there's a formal distinction between the person and the nature, or the essence, the divine essence, right? Now, what is it that's changing from the pre-incarnate word and the post-incarnate word? Is it
In my view,
everything that can be spoken of the divine word, or is it just a formality or just the material? Like what is it?
are you asking in my view?
Yeah.
The change is just going to be in the mode of union. That's not intrinsic to the word simpliciter, though. It's intrinsic to the theandric nature.
The mode of union changed?
Yeah.
How can the mode of union
At one
change if there
point,
was no union?
if there is no union, what? Are you talking about
The
after the union?
Are you saying that he gained this property which is a mode of union?
It's not like it's not a property, it's a modality.
No, I'm just like analytically, like it's just this thing that you can ascribe to him as a
It's
description.
it's we can say, yeah, he gained that description, but it's not intrinsic, which is the point. In
Okay,
your
but then
view,
that's
this
not
is
the sense in which
intrinsic.
he changed. That's not answering my question then, because
He
I
changed in
said
an extrinsic sense. The word simpliciter, we can apply change in an extrinsic sense
okay.
the same way we can call God creator when he actually
I
created the
know I'm
things
saying
that
something
exist.
different. I'm saying something different. I'm saying that your answer wasn't an answer to my question because fuck, what did you say? You said Um, I said the formalities, right? If the person is formally distinct, and then you said the mode of existence is what changed. But I'm saying mode of union is what changed. But I'm saying the mode of union isn't the ground for the change. It's the result of the change. So I'm saying what's the thing that was prior that existed at T1? Okay, T1 you have just the word simplicity,
The
right?
word.
And
The
then
word
T2,
I see what
yeah,
you're saying.
the
I see what
word
you're saying.
simpliciter.
The
T1.
word
Okay.
is the thing that enacted the union. Or simply put, the entire Trinity, because they're one in operation.
Yeah. But the word didn't have a mode of union prior to the union, right?
He had a mode of union, which is an essential union with the Father and Spirit.
And did his mode of union with the Father and Spirit change?
Um, that union itself didn't change. What changed is that he's also now in a mode of union with flesh.
What? Yo, that is identical to what I said, dude. Did anyone catch that? That's the
It's
exact
not.
same thing.
This is why I
No,
was
it's
trying to ask you
parallel
earlier.
perfectly. Yeah.
I think you cut out earlier, but I was gonna ask
Yeah,
you,
dude.
since the hypostasis and the essence are only formally distinct, they're not really distinct. So, question one would just be: are they the same thing in reality? Because the only distinction is formal.
Yeah, because in reality is talking about the material identity, right? And they're distinct formally, which is in some sense intellectual, right? Regardless of the way in which it like is intellectual, whether it's virtual or formal, there's some aspect that is intellectual, right? That's the formality, right? So that's the sense in which they're distinct. But then every sense other than that, they're identical, right? That's the material identity. Okay.
Okay.
So
Okay.
the
So
person is
I have another
material
question.
or is formally distinct from the essence. Now we take that and then we say, okay, so the formality, what we mean intellectually by the word, that remains the same. There is no such thing as the word before and the word after. The word and before and the word after formally are the same because it's not the subsistence or the mode of existence as begotten from the Father that changes. And that's what we mean by the formality of the word. Now, the sense that changes is the reality, quote unquote, or the material identity. But now the question you should be
Okay,
asking
hold
then,
on. I
hold on,
understand.
okay,
I understand now. So this was actually going to tie into my question, that last part. So since the hypostasis and the essence are the same thing in reality, Now I'll ask this. Is the inhypostatization of the flesh in the word, does that, let's say, does that union have grounding in reality?
Yeah.
Okay, and that flesh is intrinsic to the word now, correct?
Yeah.
So God intrinsically changed in reality.
Yeah.
I mean,
But it
I have
doesn't
nothing
follow
else to
without
I have
the
nothing else to
equivocation.
argue then.
Yeah, but that doesn't follow without the equivocation, because I was very precise with what I meant by that. But you're just assuming that the one
I was
you're
asking you the
assuming.
questions. You agreed
No,
to
I
all
know,
that
I know.
already.
I granted everything, but you're saying, well, doesn't that just sounds like a concession, right? Like, just the fact that I'm saying yes to that is a concession, but I'm saying
That's the
it's only a
argument.
concession if you. I know, but I'm saying your conclusion doesn't lead to what you think it does without your assumption that all kinds of intrinsic identity going from one state to another is a problem for the divinity. That doesn't follow. That's my
It's a
point.
terrible problem because the one you're applying has real grounding. You just said that it has grounding in reality. So God intrinsically changed in reality. That's
Yeah.
a very huge problem.
Yeah,
You agreed to
yeah,
all
that's
of
what
that.
the incarnation is. The incarnation happened in reality. So regardless, you're gonna
Yeah,
be,
so
you know,
from
that.
that, so from that,
Wait.
hold on, because from
Yeah.
that, I agree wholeheartedly. The incarnation, yes, that obviously happened in reality. The difference is that you're saying the inhypostatization of the word is sorry, I messed up. The inhypostatization of the flesh is intrinsic to the word. Simpliciter. So when you say that, because you already agreed after the first question, in reality, whatever happens to the hypostasis happens to the ousia, because in reality they're the same thing. There's only a formal distinction.
Yeah, because
So
you're
if there's an
equivocating
intrinsic
on what
change,
intrinsic means.
okay,
That's
so
what
if there's an
I'm saying.
intrinsic change in the hypostasis, you're gonna have an intrinsic change in the ousia.
Okay,
That
well,
just
why
follows in
that
reality.
does no, it doesn't follow.
You
Because
already
this
said
is
yes to
okay,
all my
let me
questions.
tell you why. Let me tell you why. This is the only I said it before. I'm gonna try and say it again if I like if you don't get the idea, I don't know what else to say, okay? This is the problem in your because I understand exactly what you're saying. But the problem is that okay, think of it like this, okay? I'm saying that the only sense in which we're saying that he changed is that if we take a look at all of the things that can be intrinsically ascribed to the word materially, okay? And you have T1, which is pre-incarnation, and then T2, which is post-incarnation, okay? At time 1, his all of the if we just look at it analytically, right, and we lay out all the things that can be ascribed to his material identity, i.e. things that are proper to him in reality, okay? Then and that's just nature. It's just trivially, right? Because natures are intrinsic trivially. Okay. Now I'm saying they're intrinsic to the word, but regardless, they're intrinsic. Okay.
That's
The
an
fact that we're
issue, though.
ascribing, yeah.
Go ahead, go ahead.
So the fact that we're ascribing a nature to this thing means that it's intrinsic and it's referring to the materiality. Okay. So all we're saying when we say that the material identity changed is that prior to the incarnation, he didn't have a human nature. Okay. But this is where your reasoning like goes wrong, because prior to the incarnation, the set only has one part, right? It only has one component, which is the divine nature. So
He's not composite.
the set
He's
of
not
material
composite in the first
things.
place. What do you mean?
No, I'm saying this. I'm speaking analytically. Like I'm trying to help you to get this point, because your whole argument hinges on this equivocation on intrinsic, and I'm explaining why it doesn't follow. Because it only follows because of this assumption you're making. Because you're equating the set with the part. Because prior to the incarnation, you have this set of material identity, right? That's what I'm talking about when I say set. So set of material identity prior to the incarnation. And then you have a part of that set, which is one of the things that make up his material identity, which is the divinity, okay? And you're saying because prior to the incarnation, that set only had one part, which was the divinity. It was identical in reality, right? But now after, they are also identical. But I'm saying no, because the set and the part are formally distinct. And that formal distinction is sufficient for us to only predicate the change on one part of it, not on the change is only ascribed to the formality of the set, not of the part of the set. But you're collapsing those two things.
As I said, that's a walking contradiction. Because
Wow.
you already agreed that in reality, the hypostasis and the essence are the same thing. So what follows from that, you agreed to this also, is that in reality, since they're the same thing in reality, whatever happens to the divine hypostasis happens to the ousia, whatever happens intrinsically. You said yes to that, verbatim.
Wait, no, wait, I didn't say that.
Yes, you did. Everyone heard you.
Repeat it one more time.
I asked you earlier. You said yes to all 3 of these questions. The first question I asked is, are they only formally distinct? And you said yes, and then therefore, are they the same thing in reality? You said yes. So what follows from that is that since they're the same thing in reality, there's a, how do I put this? We just say they're identical in reality. Therefore, whatever happens to one applies to the other. That follows in reality.
Oh, I see where your issue lies. You're doing the exact same thing Agan did. I'll tell you why. Because you're assuming it's kind of like I don't know if you watched the debate with him and David Erhan, but Agan did the exact same thing when they were asking him about this point, which was when he would talk about I don't know if you remember, he would say he would be questioning him and he would ask him a question about the difference between the material hypostasis and the formal hypostasis. But the problem is that you're understanding these as 2 different things, but these are 2 different senses of the same thing. So when you say in reality the word changed, when you're considering the distinctions, you saying the word is referring to the formality. But then when you say in reality, you're talking about the materiality. So then you're saying it's kind of like when we say it's literally the equivalent of when we say qualitatively there's 2 natures, right? It's like you just can't say that. Those are just 2 different categories that you're trying to push together.
I'm sorry, but that's like jargon. You already agreed earlier. I mean, I really don't have anything else to argue. You already agreed to my whole conclusion. You said, and you can affirm this again if you'd like, that in reality, God changes intrinsically. You said yes to that. That's literally my argument.
The hypostasis changes intrinsically insofar as
Which is in reality
to the hypostasis. Yeah.
Which is in reality identical to what?
But does that mean that the previous reality is the thing that changed? In the sense that it's the part of the previous reality.
I want you to answer.
I'm answering, bro. You're just not listening. I gave you the answer 15 minutes ago.
My question is, in reality, that hypostasis which changed, what is that identical to in reality? The what?
The hypostasis that changed? Yeah, it's identical to the divine nature in reality, yeah.
Okay. So in reality, whatever applies to the divine hypostasis being constitutive of it would apply to be constitutive of the ousia.
So what's the thing that's changing in reality?
Literally the only way to get out of this is to say that there's a real distinction and make the divine essence a species.
No, I have the thing to get out of this. What's the thing that's changing in reality? Is it either one, we're speaking analytically, right? Either it's one, the set of things that can be ascribed to the hypostasis in reality, or is it the parts of the set? If it's so this is my point. My point is that if you say it's only the set of things that we can ascribe, that's the thing specifically that is undergoing the change, that is not an issue for the divinity because the set is distinct from the divinity. But you're saying no,
only formally.
Because hold on. You're saying because the set changes, even though the set is formally distinct from the parts also change necessarily. That's the non sequitur. That's why I wanted to formalize this earlier. It does not follow.
Well, I don't even know about this whole set thing you're invoking. I'm not even working on those grounds. I'm simply asking you, and I'll ask it one more time, because if you say yes to this, it's literally my whole argument.
That's why we're having problems,
I literally have nothing.
Because you're not working on these grounds.
I have nothing else to talk about if you affirm this. It's literally, I'll just ask a yes or no question. Intrinsically, did God change in reality? Does that change? 1, is it intrinsic? 2, does it have grounding in reality?
That doesn't mean his divinity changed, dude. That's what I've been trying to explain to you.
What is the hypostasis in reality?
No, you don't understand my distinction between the set and the parts. That's the problem, right?
Dude, the hypostasis in reality is just the divine nature. What do you mean?
Yeah, but not okay. But when you say in reality, you're assuming the way in which the formality is related to the reality. You're saying, okay, this is what I was saying earlier as well. The way in which the humanity relates to the hypostasis and the way in which the divinity relates to the hypostasis is distinct. One relates to the hypostasis by identity, the other relates by predication. So when you say in reality, in reality, there is a sense in which the hypostasis is identical to the divinity. But then there's also a sense in reality that is distinct from that sense, under which we understand that there really is a human nature that is predicated to the person intrinsically. That's what we're saying. But the problem is you keep equating on intrinsic as applying to everything else that's intrinsic. You're saying that one of the parts of him is that he's changeable. Therefore, the other part of this intrinsic identity is also changeable. That doesn't even apply. You're saying because one of the
That's what I'm
part is true of
saying.
the part, it's true of the whole. That's not full at all.
I'm not saying the humanity is changeable. Therefore, if the humanity is intrinsic to the word, then the word's changeable. Not my argument at all. My argument, and this is why I asked you the question earlier, is that what's it called? I asked you, is X gaining Y? Is that a valid would we be able to validly call that a change? You said yes.
Yeah,
So
but the change is not ascribed to what you think it is.
so when we
It's not
apply this, to the actual situation, the word X gained flesh Y intrinsically. You affirm this.
Yeah,
Now-
which equates the thing.
Now, when it comes to being in reality, not like katapanoia, not in theoria. In reality, if the divine hypostasis is identical to the ousia, because the distinction is only formal, it's just going to follow that if the word gains a human part intrinsically, that's going to mean that the universal of the ousia also gain that human part. Because they're the same thing in reality. They're reducible.
No, they're not.
And this is my whole argument. You already affirmed earlier that the word changed intrinsically. Or
No,
that
I'm
God
saying
changed intrinsically.
all you're saying again. Okay, I'm gonna say this one last time, and then maybe like Y-Fun can tap in. Maybe he'll explain it better than me.
I mean,
But-
I already got my whole argument out. Like you affirmed that God changed intrinsically. There's really
Yeah,
nothing
but
else to
you
say.
haven't shown why that's an issue. You know that, right? I granted this, like, your first question to me was already granting that he changed intrinsically. This was never an issue. That's why I've tried to formalize it for you to show you why it's a non sequitur, and you don't see that. Of course, it's very simple to just say, oh, God changed intrinsically, and then equivocate on what that means. I'm saying that doesn't mean what you think it does, and you need a very specific sense in which he changed intrinsically, which you're not doing. But you're failing to engage with that part of the distinction.
Already
The one distinction too
substantiated.
hard for your argument.
Already substantiated it. The ousia and the hypostasis in reality are reducible because the distinction's only formal.
Yeah,
There's
but we're
nothing
talking
that
about
gets you past that.
when I'm talking about in reality, like I'm speaking analytically. The way that I'm describing these things is analytically. Okay, so analytically, if we look at prior to the incarnation, there's no distinction between the set of things that are materially ascribable to Christ, to the hypostasis, and the divinity. Those are the only things, because the divinity is the only thing that's ascribed, right? Okay, so prior to the incarnation, they're just the same thing. But then that's assuming that because that is the only part of a set, that there's no distinction between the set and the parts. That's a non sequitur, because after the incarnation, there's now a second part to the set, which means that the set changed, not the other part that was in the set prior to it. That doesn't follow. You're saying that because the overall set that only had one part prior, so at T1 you have the set, okay, and the set has one part, and they're just
Hold on.
the same, right?
The
Because it has one
ousia-
part. Hold on.
the
And then
ousia is not a
T2,
part
just
to a
really
set.
please engage with this part, because if we don't get past this, like there's literally nothing
I
we can
understand
do.
what
You
you're
just keep
saying.
getting to this. Let me just
Yeah,
say it
I
this way
understand
and
what
then
you're saying.
respond directly, and then we can move on if it doesn't work. Okay, this is the last way I know how to
Okay,
possibly.
go ahead.
Okay, I apologize. I know I'm yapping, but okay. You're saying that at T1 you have the set A, okay, which is just the hypostasis, or all the things that are materially ascribable to the hypostasis. Okay, that's what the set means, and within the set it contains all the things that the hypostasis possesses materially, intrinsically. Okay. Now, prior to the incarnation, there's only one thing within this set. So there's not really any way to distinguish between the set and the parts unless we do it in our minds. That's what we mean when we say there's a formal distinction between the word and his material identity. But
It's
after
not.
the union, that formality actually exists. It becomes a real distinction in reality, right? It becomes a greater. Actually, I don't know if I would say real distinction in reality. I haven't thought that far enough for that, but like
A real distinction. Hold on,
it becomes
repeat
more
that.
apparent. You can actually hold on. Ignore that part. I threw that out there. I'm not sure if that's technically accurate. I haven't thought about that enough. But I'm saying that the formality actually manifests in a way that is like a noticeable difference now. Okay, because prior the part and the set were only
Noticeable
formally
difference.
distinct, but now there's a set. Now there's another part of the set. So the first part of the set and the second part of the set now constitute a set, which means that the set is no longer identical to the first part. Okay, which means that they are really distinct now, in some sense. In some sense.
What's
Now,
really distinct?
I'm saying that the set and the parts, right?
So the
material
Usia is a
identity.
species. What?
What?
So the Usia. Are you saying after the union, the divine Usia is really distinct from the divine hypostasis?
No, that's not what I said.
So flesh out that real distinction.
No, I'm talking about the real distinction between the set. Like,
Which is
this
what?
is analytical. This isn't like a real ontological thing. I'm saying that
What
there
I'm
is a
saying is
distinction
that
between
the Usia is not something contained in a set. The Usia, it's an
I know,
abstract
dude.
which it bears like all the properties that it's particular or that manifest in its particulars. The abstract Usia itself is not contained in some arbitrary set.
Yeah, I'm saying set to
Only the
try and like get a
properties
point
are.
across.
Only the properties are contained in the set.
Yeah, I know.
By the way, if you're putting all those properties in the same set, you're a Eutychian. If this is your rebut, you're just a Eutychian.
That does not even follow. If I put all of the parts in what set?
That's what I'm asking you. Flesh out this set. What
What
is
do you
the
mean
set?
that's what you're asking me, bro? You know there's like fucking how many different sets that what you just said could be ascribed to? And it takes a very specific one for me to be Eutychian.
I'm
But then you're
asking
just saying, well, because of one set, I'm
which
equating
one.
all the other sets. Like, that's what you've been doing this entire time.
You said flesh out this set system. I'm not even accepting this in the first place. It's like it's not coherent.
The only reason why I invoked it was to help you understand it. I didn't need to invoke this. You just failed to understand the distinction, and you still think that your argument still follows. And the only
What
reason
is the
why
real
I'm actually
distinction?
hold on.
What is the
You
real
could have just
distinction
proven me.
between?
You could have proven me wrong by formalizing your argument. The only reason why I'm explaining set is so you don't have to formalize your argument and to show you where your misunderstanding comes from. Unless you would like to formalize it and then show me how the
I haven't
intrinsic
gotten around to like writing out a formal argument. I'm
Alright,
saying
well,
I want to ask
that's what
you
the hinge is on.
when you said real distinction, what is that picking out? What is X and Y distinct?
Nothing that is an issue. I know, like, you heard that. You thought it was not. I'm not. It wasn't talking about the divinity
I
being
want you to
distinct from the
tell me.
hypostasis.
I just
I was
want you to
talking about
tell
the
me
sets. Yeah.
what is the set? What do you mean set? What is that?
The set of the material predicates of the word. So all of the things that can be
The
that can be
essential
ascribed
things?
to him, all of the material things that could be ascribed to him. Yeah, the essences, right? So if we just think of what are the things that I can ascribe to Christ that are essences. Okay, we have divinity and we have humanity. Okay. But then prior to the incarnation, there was only divinity. So this imaginary set of material predicates of the word, that thing goes from one state being just divinity to the second state being divinity and humanity. That's the thing that changes. Okay. Now I'm saying that specific sense in which the hypostasis changes, insofar as he adopts a human nature intrinsically, you haven't shown how intrinsic leads to the issue you think it does. Because I'm saying there's a sense in which you can speak of Christ intrinsically that doesn't refer to the divinity. You're saying every single sense in which you could possibly speak of Christ refers to the divinity. That's an assumption.
That's
What's
not what I
one of the
said.
premises in your argument? You haven't substantiated that.
That's not required for my argument at all. And I'm not accepting this like set system you're using. What it sounds like to me is you're just saying that it's gonna be the set of properties which contains all of the essential attributes. Is this what you're saying?
Yeah, but it's just to help you understand. It's like purely conceptual.
Okay, so if you're putting all of the properties in one set, you realize that's Eutychian, right? Like this is not like a good account to run on. This is pure
They're
Eutychianism.
still distinct. They're just in the set. You think that now
What?
because they're in a set, they must be confused? That doesn't even follow.
If all of the natural qualities are in one set,
Yeah, they're still
like
the
in
same.
and of
That's not
themselves.
Eutychian.
What Eutychianism is to say that the flesh is consubstantial with the divinity or with the word.
That's not even what I'm talking about. How can an essence?
You
What?
realize what
The
that
flesh
means,
is
though.
consubstantial with the word.
You realize what? Yeah, and he recanted of that in Ephesus too. You realize what that means, though, right?
You'd
In the
have to.
set, they're making a set of substantial properties, and he's putting them all in one set. That's literally what you're saying.
Yeah, but it's not a real set. That is the nature. I'm saying when we speak, because he's saying that set is the nature.
So
Right? I'm saying
this whole framework has
wait,
no
hold on,
grounding in reality.
hold on.
Why
You
should I
said
accept
I was
this?
Eutychian, so let me respond. The problem is that his set is actually really existent in reality, such that we can no longer speak of two natures unconfused in reality. I'm negating that. I'm saying the only sense in which I'm speaking of the set is in theoria to help you understand. There's no set of things in reality. It's just to distinguish the way in which we're talking about this relation to Christ versus other ways in which we're talking about it. And ways in
But
which
that
we can talk about
distinguishment
it
isn't
are
real,
also just
then.
called sets and categories. These are just terms that are interchangeable to help you understand.
It's not even real, then. I don't need to use this at all for my argument. I literally have nothing else to argue.
I
You already
invoked this as a
affirmed.
response to your argument.
You are.
And
I
if
have
you want to
nothing.
reject
I
this, then
literally.
we're just going to go back to you having to formalize your argument.
I literally have nothing else to argue. You already affirmed God
Because
changed
your
intrinsically.
argument isn't valid. So, like, you're wondering why me
My
granting your
argument.
conclusion
My
isn't an
argument.
issue. It's because your argument doesn't follow. It's a non sequitur.
My
And you think your
argument is
conclusion
that.
means what it
Hold
doesn't.
on. I think you're confused on what my conclusion is. My argument is that, as per the view of Enhypostaton, you lead to the conclusion that God changes intrinsically. Do you affirm that in the incarnation God changes intrinsically?
Yeah, is that a problem necessarily?
Okay, then my conclusion is sufficed. God
Yes
changes
or no?
intrinsically
Yes or
according
no?
to.
What do you mean, okay? Is that a problem necessarily? Yes or no?
Yes, that's a problem with divine immutability.
Necessarily, it's a problem that he intrinsically changed. That's what you said, right?
Yeah, because the only two ways to answer this would to either be, or let's say, two ways. There's actually a few ways. They're all bad though. The only two ways you can answer this is to literally just be some neoclassical theist or something and just take the bullet, or you would have to affirm a real distinction between the ousia
Dude,
and
this
hypostasis.
is just no. The formal distinction is sufficient for showing my point.
The formal
It
distinction isn't even real. What do you mean?
Because the
What do you think the
formality,
real distinction is?
me or him.
How
Juno.
many numbers is 3?
Yo, Juno, do you want to just go with O block and then maybe you guys will have a better fucking edit this because this is
He
we're just
doesn't.
running in circles.
I don't think he even holds. Do you hold an hypostaton?
Yeah, I'm a Thomist, obviously. But when
Aquinas doesn't. Hold on. Aquinas doesn't hold to that. What do you mean?
yes, he does, thinks the humanity was anhypostatized. But I'm clarifying the point.
He says it's on account of number, not parts. Damascene and Maximus say it's on account of parts.
Okay, but I'm pointing out an error that you made. I want to, you're saying that real identity would entail, what's it called, the transfer of properties or transitivity. But with his point, you said, it would have to posit a real distinction in order to break transitivity. But I was just saying, well, depending on how you define real distinction, the formal distinction would be considered a real distinction, especially under the Thomistic view, which just says a distinction prior to the active intellect. So then it would be enough to break transitivity. But under the Scotus view, it wouldn't be a real distinction because they're not separable.
That's
if you
why
mean
I
it in
made
the
it clear
first sense,
earlier. I'm taking the SCOTUS definition. I said that earlier.
yeah, if you take the Scotus definition, then this breaks transitivity because they're prior to the active intellect, they're not the same. So then you can't posit. You can predicate something to one and not to the other.
That wouldn't follow. In reality, because in reality they're reducible. What do you mean?
That's just talking about their subsistence. Like obviously their subsistence is, but what they are is not, or their formality. Those are distinct.
The formality, dude. The formality isn't grounding like a real distinction, though. In reality, they're
It
reducible.
does.
What? That's just a real distinction, then. What are you talking about? It's not even a formal distinction.
Formal distinction is a real distinction insofar as real distinction is prior to the active intellect, but not insofar as they're separable.
I don't think you're like running on the same terms I'm using.
Well, we can just take out real distinction and just put it there. What about separability breaks transitivity?
What about separate? I'm not talking about what? I don't even.
That's
I don't
the
think you're
only
understanding my
difference
terminology.
between Scotus's real distinction and Thomistic real distinction. So it must then be something about what's it called? Separability, which then breaks transitivity. So I'm
I mean,
asking you,
I've already made.
under what you're saying, why?
I've already made my argument.
You're just saying because they're reduced. That's like saying because they're identical in subsistence, this means like their formality is one and the same. It's retarded. They're formally still two different things. They can be predicated different things. I can say a triangle is a
Formally,
three-sided square, a
formally, sure.
three-sided shape, but I can say
Formally,
that.
sure. But that's not my argument. My argument rests on what's happening in reality.
So the formality of the humanity, which subsists in the subsistence, would still retain different properties. The same way that a triangle and what's it called? Like a triangle and a square could pertain different properties, but they can only be formally distinct. Or like rationality and humanity. I mean, and animality. Those would be formally distinct, yet they would have different properties. But they would have one and the same subsistence, and thus would be one and the same in reality. Because reality refers to the thing's subsistence or its existence, like its actus essendi.
Yeah, that's my point. So, on
The
account of
same actus
reality,
essendi does not mean the same properties. So then you're saying,
on
well,
account
they
of
have
reality, I'm not done. On account of reality, you would have God intrinsically changing. Like, he already affirmed this. There's like nothing else for me to even argue.
yeah, but
Everyone
that
heard
just
it. I
understands
asked
divine
him and he said
immutability.
yes.
Yeah, obviously he affirmed intrinsically, but we're talking about divine immutability, which you brought up, which refers to the divinity. So then that's what I'm saying, a difference in properties. Like there's the union is
The
one way,
divinity,
not both ways, even
the
under like
divinity
the
is the hypostasis in reality. The
that's
only
in its
difference between
existence.
the
Yes, but
only
in its operation they differ.
so in its existence, the divine usia would change them.
No, it wouldn't. What the fuck? Because it only
Because
entails like
whatever applies to the existence, I think you would affirm this. Whatever applies to the existence of the divine hypostasis would apply to the divine usia, correct?
so whatever
Because they're
applies to the existence.
because they're reducible in that category. I asked
Sure.
whatever applies in existence of the divine hypostasis would apply to the divine usia.
Sure.
Okay. And I asked Bumbleclat earlier, is the inhypostatization of the flesh to the word in reality, and is it intrinsic? He said yes to both of those things.
All that means is that the humanity starts subsisting by the divinity, not that there's any change in the existence.
It's intrinsic. What do you mean?
Yet intrinsic, that doesn't matter. That's just to say it's assumed into it. Because again, like
You do
under
realize
the
you're
anhypostaton,
contradicting
let me
Aquinas.
finish. I'm not contradicting Aquinas. What are you talking about?
You are, because what you're invoking right now is a composition on account of parts. Aquinas doesn't hold to that. Aquinas
That's not
holds
a
to the classic.
composition of parts. What the fuck are you talking about? Have you read like his Compendium Theologiae?
I've read where he speaks of the composite hypostasis and how he interprets that.
Yeah, he speaks on in the Compendium Theologiae as well, which he says that the subsistence of the hypostasis is what grants subsistence to the humanity, which I can show you, and that's
That
why
doesn't have to
there's
do with
not
my point.
parts. That's what I said, and you said, well, that contradicts Aquinas.
I said no, my gosh. I'm arguing against his view, which is an hypostaton. My argument, right, I would obviously approach it differently if I'm arguing against a Thomist, because Aquinas doesn't hold to an hypostaton. He holds to the composition only being on account of number. which is just the classical Chalcedonian view. I obviously wouldn't bring this contention to a Thomist. I'd bring a different contention. He's arguing on account of enhypostaton.
Yeah, no, but again, like this, on account of real composition, like apart the whole relation.
Yes.
Yeah, that's fine.
That's not fine. Aquinas has a serious issue with that.
Okay, yeah, I know that position is not compatible with Thomism. What I'm saying is the principle which I
Okay,
laid out,
then
which was that
that's what I'm saying. If you're defending this, you're contradicting Aquinas.
I would
Because
attack it from a different lens. I think this
Aquinas doesn't
objection
even
is
hold to
bad.
this idea.
Yeah, he doesn't hold to this idea, but it's for a different reason. So saying that Aquinas doesn't hold to it doesn't really like save you from the fact that your objection doesn't work against it. Because your objection against it fails on account of the fact that the existence doesn't change.
He already affirmed my objection. What do you mean? My objection is that as per the
Divine
enhypostatic view,
immutability.
yeah, my objection is that God intrinsically changes as per the view of enhypostaton. He said yes to
Yeah,
that.
but you're equivocating on the sense. Like this is what he's saying. You keep going back to it and equivocating because when you say that the divine essence changed, that's not his view when he said that God intrinsically changed. So
It
again,
necessarily follows, because there's not even a real distinction between the essence and hypostasis.
it doesn't necessarily follow just because there's
If you
not a
say
real
there
distinction.
is, then that makes the divine essence a species, and that's condemned by like all the fathers who speak about it.
It doesn't. You said it makes it a species.
If you say that the divine ousia is really distinct from the hypostasis, it would mean that the divine ousia is a species.
How so?
Have you read like these topics?
Yeah, I have. I don't see why necessarily then it would lead to it being a species. If we're talking about the what's it called, a minor real distinction, which is what's posited by the formal distinction.
I said, oh my gosh, I said if it's a real distinction.
Yeah, a minor real
Not a
distinction is
formal
a real
distinction.
distinction.
I'm not saying a formal distinction. I'm saying
A formal
if you
distinction is a minor real distinction.
I'm saying if you stray from that and go to a major real distinction, then there's an issue because the ousia becomes a species.
Yeah, but then you're saying, oh my, I don't think you're gonna get this.
You're
Minor
arguing
real
from a
and major.
Thomistic account. I'm not even arguing against that account right now. I'm arguing
I'm
against
arguing
the
from
account
a
of
scholastic
Maximus
account.
and
Like,
Damascene.
I don't think you can even show me where
He doesn't
Scotus would.
hold to the scholastic account. That's my point. Like you're trying to defend him on account of Thomism.
He is. He's
He doesn't
talking.
hold to
Yeah,
that.
you're making a point on the scholastic account, which is formal distinction. You're saying formal distinction implies transitivity, which
It's
has to
not
be like
purely
the top three most
scholastic.
retarded things. Yet, yes, the formal distinction. What?
It's fleshed out in the fathers. It's just not called like a formal distinction by them. But that idea is fleshed out.
I mean, I would disagree with that, but either way,
You don't think the
yeah. So he
fathers
does
taught a
hold to the
formal
scholastic
distinction
account,
between
right?
the hypostases and the essence?
Hmm?
You don't think the fathers taught a formal distinction between the essence and the hypostasis?
No, but that's a different point. Like we're gonna stick to the relevant point. So
What?
two things which are not the same prior to an act of intellect. Why does transitivity apply?
Hold on, I'm sorry, but have you read Adablabius by St. Gregory of Nyssa?
Why is this relevant?
Because, like, why are you discussing like these ideas with me if you haven't read the fathers regarding them? You just
You're
said you don't
arguing
think
a
the
point.
fathers.
Yeah, I
Repeat
don't
that.
think they taught formal distinction. Like that's a different argument though. That's
I'm not
irrelevant to the
saying
topic.
I'm not saying they called this distinction formal distinction. I'm
I'm not
saying
saying they called it. I'm
the
saying I don't even
idea.
think they pushed the idea. No. But anyways, yeah, we can keep going with what the relevant topics to the conversation.
I
I
mean,
can
my
bring up like
argument is already made. He already affirmed God intrinsically changes. Like, I literally have nothing else to say. I just don't. Unless you want to talk about like the classical view that Aquinas holds to. But
Well,
I've
your
already made my
conclusion isn't
objection.
exactly that God intrinsically changed, it's that the divinity changed. And that only
Exactly.
follows if the transitivity still holds, even in light of a formal distinction. But that's what he's asking you. So your conclusion
God
isn't if
takes on
God
the
formally
essence.
intrinsically changed. Yeah, but that's what he's asking you about. So answer his question about transitivity.
Yeah, why would we
What
hold
are
that
you talking about?
transitivity would hold to things which differ prior to intellect?
Repeat that?
Why would we hold that transitivity follows between things which are not the same prior to an active intellect?
Because in reality, they're still the same thing. So there's going to be a real transitivity.
That doesn't matter.
It does matter. If they're identical in reality, it's just going to follow that there's going to be a real transitivity.
Why does identity refer to transitive sense we're talking about? It only refers to
transitivity follows from an identity. Whether you want to put it in a sortal or you want to make it absolutely.
Yeah. The transitivity would only account for the fact that two things are the same in this sense, which is the properties. But again, the existence
So
does
in
not
the
talk
real
about
sense,
the properties.
so in the real sense, is there a transitivity between the essence and hypostasis? In the real sense.
In the
'Cause
real sense, you're talking about
you already
SCOTUS's real
agreed.
distinction?
You already agreed they're reducible in
You
existence
said
in reality.
Are you talking about SCOTUS's real distinction?
I'm not saying what? I'm not saying a real distinction. I'm saying a formal distinction.
Yeah, you asked, is a formal distinction different in reality? Or in the real
No,
sense?
I said because you said transitivity that applies in different senses. Is what you said, right?
Yeah.
And before that, I said that transitivity follows from identity. You said yeah. Would you agree to that?
Yeah.
Okay, so if transitivity follows from identity, and in the real sense there's an identity between the hypostasis and the essence, then it's going to follow that in the real sense they have a transitivity.
Yeah. Yeah, that just refers to its existence, not its properties. Like, that's completely fine.
Yeah, but if the properties are intrinsic to the word, it's going to be a constitutive of its existence. In
Again, like when you
reality.
say the word, you're speaking about the formality and the reality.
The word is literally just the essence subsisting in a certain way. When it comes to existence, it's reducible to the essence.
the essence. You said the essence subsisting in a certain way, as in filiation. Yes, this is formally distinct from the essence, though. Correct.
Yeah,
So the
it's not a real
formality
distinction.
still
It's only
differs.
formal.
Oh, that's fine. But what about inseparability breaks transitivity?
I already said. What do you mean breaks transitivity?
Like, makes it such that it doesn't apply.
Between what exactly?
Between two
I'm
things.
not saying. I'm
If
not
I say
saying.
X and Y, if
Oh,
X
I
and
see what
Y
you're
are
saying. That's
inseparable,
not
does
my
that mean
argument.
that
My
has to be?
argument.
Because if that's not your argument, then you're
My
not.
argument is that
Then
the
you're
essence. My argument is that the essence itself has to necessarily change.
obviously that's your conclusion. But I'm saying the way you get there, you have to have the premise of inseparability breaks transitivity, because then you have to say that, well, if real distinction is a way to escape, but the only difference between a real distinction and a formal distinction is separability, then separability has to be what causes transitivity to break.
I
Because if
didn't
it's something
say
else about the real distinction, then it has it in common with the formal distinction in order to break transitivity.
a real distinction. It's not an escape. I just said that, but after that, I made note that it just leads right into another heresy.
Yeah, at least what I'm saying
Because
it
in
breaks.
Aristotelian metaphysics, a species is just going to be like a universal predicable of like multiple individuals. You understand that part, right?
Yeah, but that you
Okay,
see,
and the
obviously you say it leads into a different.
individuals, I'm explaining this, and the individuals within that species are going to be numerically distinct precisely because each individual has its own instance of the common nature.
Yeah,
But if the divine usia were a species like the humanity, then that would mean that the Father would possess one instance of divinity, and the Son another instance, the Spirit another instance. This would be
yeah,
the same error that Philoponus made.
yeah. But
Okay,
yeah,
so that's the
I
point. If you
understand your
posit
point,
a
but
real
you
distinction, you just fall into another heresy. You fall into tritheism.
yeah, you're saying that falls into that heresy. Okay, that's fine. I agree with you, but what I'm
So
saying
you're
is that
forced into a
when we
formal
say,
distinction.
dude, you're not addressing what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that, well, that's fine. Obviously, positing a real distinction leads into that heresy, but I'm saying you're saying that it solves this problem that you're bringing up of transitivity. So transitivity,
solves.
in order to escape like transitivity, you must posit a real distinction. So what about inseparability breaks it?
I'm not. I never even. By the way, when I was talking to him, I don't even think I ever mentioned transitivity. It was
You
only
did.
you
You
who
said it
mentioned.
follows that if it's true of one, then it's true of the other because of identity. That's transitivity.
Yeah, it's
Like-
true of one and true of the other in reality. Because as you just agreed to this with me right now, that one, transitivity follows from identity, at least in that category. And in the category of existence in reality, what they have in common in reality, there's an identity between the hypostasis and the ousia. You agreed to that. And what
You're
follows from
equivocating.
that, you also agreed to this, is that in the real sense, in the sense of existence, there's a transitivity between the divine hypostasis and the ousia.
Okay, done. Yeah, you just equivocated
Okay.
on in the reality sense, but again, like you keep
In
dodging the question.
reality pertains to what exists concretely. What do you mean?
In
Those are
reality pertains to
interchangeable.
what exists concretely. Yeah, the formality exists concretely. So again, this is what I'm saying. Like, yes, it can be said in reality, but not said of the existence, which is why I'm saying you're equivocating. But
The existence
either way,
the
answer the
existence
question.
what I'm picking out in existence is that it exists in reality concretely. It's
Okay,
the same thing.
but we're saying the what exists is different, as in the
Yeah,
formality.
because there's not even a real distinction between essence and hypostasis. So whatever applies to the hypostasis as a
You're not.
constitutive of its real existence in that specific sense would apply to the ousia in the real sense of its
Yeah, we
constitutive
can.
of
I
existence.
don't think you're gonna get what I'm saying. We can just move on.
I think you're like critiquing something I didn't even bring up. Like I didn't bring
You
this up.
did bring it up. Like, yes, you did. Because
I didn't
again,
bring
like
I didn't say transitivity at all.
it's implied by what you said. Yes, you're saying X is
The
true
issue
of
I'm bringing
Y.
is the issue I'm
You're
bringing
saying
is not with
listen. You're saying
transitivity
X and
though. It's
Y.
with divine
Let me
immutability.
finish. You're saying X and Y is the same. R is true of Y. Therefore, R is true of X. That's transitivity.
Okay, like yeah, sure, semantically. But
Right.
my
So
like
then
my
when I say
conclusion.
inseparability doesn't break transitivity, is that a true or false statement?
What do you mean inseparability doesn't break transitivity? Like what are you pointing out with that?
I'm pointing out that just because something is inseparable doesn't just because something is inseparable does not mean that transitivity is broken. As in what's true of one is
And
true of the other.
what from my words leads you to think that's what I'm arguing?
Because you
Like
said
how are
a
you
real
interpreting?
distinction. You said a real distinction is what would what's it called? Make it such that it doesn't follow from one to the other.
Yeah, because they're only
But the
formally
only
distinct.
difference between a real distinction and a formal distinction is that one is inseparable and the other one isn't. So then it must be the
I
difference.
wouldn't.
The difference is what causes it, not the similarities, or else both would break transitivity and your argument would fail.
You said what's the difference between a real and formal distinction?
Inseparability.
I mm, it depends how you flesh it out.
No, that's literally the difference. But that like every time you bring this objection up to SCOTUS, that like the Thomists bring up, which is that real distinctions is
Hold on,
prior to
by
an act of intellect.
separability, I think I know what you're saying. By separability, is this just going to be like a dependency relation?
No, separability means these two things like can be separated, but inseparable mean these two things cannot be separated.
Which means there's some sort of dependency relation, wouldn't it?
Not necessarily. You can just say these two
So,
things cannot be apart, but um, either way, like you can posit that or
but
not
are they
posit that.
correlative at least?
Correlative, like they refer to one another. I
Yeah,
don't
like they
think that
imply
has
each
to
other.
imply it. That doesn't have to be the case. No.
I would, yeah, I don't think you're quite like grasping the exact argument I'm making.
And what do you interpret as a real distinction?
All I was mentioning with real distinction is that the only way you can get get out of this when I was talking to him is by either biting the bullet and trying to reconcile intrinsic change with divine immutability, or invoking some sort of real distinction between the hypostasis and the essence, which would just make the essence a species and you'd fall into tritheism.
Yeah,
just like
I know your point. Like your point's like kind of clear and obvious. Like this is kind of like the 101 objection. Like I'm not gonna lie, it's pretty easy to understand. Which is just that if he posits a real distinction between the hypostasis and essence, then the essence then becomes a species. But if he does not posit a real distinction, then transitivity follows. But I'm positing something between those two.
Okay, but for example, if you have a man, and would you agree that he's a particular union of the body and soul?
Yeah.
Okay, so at his moment of conception, he would be a human hypostasis, meaning that he's a particular of the union of a body and soul, as you said. So when we think of this, he would still be a human hypostasis until he dies. And then after he dies, would you agree that his soul is separated from his body?
Yeah.
Okay. And after he's dead, can he be a human hypostasis?
No.
Okay. And that would obviously follow because a human hypostasis is the particular union of a body and soul. And at death, they would be separated.
Yeah.
Okay. But does this what's it called? Does this hypostasis or just does this person have particular existence after they die still?
Yeah.
Okay. So even after this, that means that the person what's it called? Still continues to exist.
Well,
But they're no longer
the person doesn't exist. The person's a complete
what?
hypostasis.
You just said the person because I asked, does he still retain particular existence after he died? You said yes.
But should have been more strict. That's why I clarified here. Well, it's not technically a person because a person.
It's not an existence, not as a complete human hypostasis, but nonetheless exists particularly.
Not a person. Yeah, it exists particularly.
Okay, so this man, obviously, not as a complete hypostasis, obviously. It would still exist, but it would no longer be a human hypostasis, but as a hypostasis of the soul.
It wouldn't even be a hypostasis. No.
It's particular, though. What do you mean?
So it's not complete.
It doesn't have to be complete to have particular existence. Earlier I asked, does it have particular existence? You affirm that.
Yeah, it's particular existence of a nature, not just particular existence as such.
Wait, repeat that?
It's particular existence of a nature, not just particular existence as such.
Okay. So it's still a soul hypostasis insofar as it's a particular.
The soul itself is not a nature, but it's part of a nature. Which is my point.
It's still a particular.
So?
Because it exists. I'm gonna keep going.
Doesn't equal hypostasis. Particular nature equals hypostasis.
Repeat that?
Particular does not equal hypostasis, but particular nature equals hypostasis.
Wait, hold on, Wyfern. What do you define a hypostasis or a suppositum as?
To be honest, I can't.
Nature.
This analogy, I should have asked this to
Well,
because you don't hold to a composite on account of parts.
Well, did you know that glass bottle said that the soul is still a hypostasis, but not a person? Because person is more more strict.
Yeah, no, that's what he said, but I'm positing hypostasis as
a person is just rational hypostasis.
You say that again? Juno?
A person is just a hypostasis plus rationality. It's like a rock. It would be a hypostasis, but not a
No,
person.
that's a common misconception. It's also complete in a species. So
A person? A complete species?
no, it's complete in a species and of a rational
Complete
nature.
complete in the species?
Yeah, in order to be a person. I was like, I
So
was, I
how
said,
are the
I,
persons of the
so,
Trinity persons then? Are they of a species?
no.
Oh, so y'all want to team up on me, but when I'm trying to team up on somebody else.
No, it's
I don't
Koji.
think
Just
that's,
chill, Koji, chill. That's not even what Aquinas posits. He's positing Aquinas and Boethius especially. They posit persons and individual subsistence of rational nature, but in Compendium Theologiae, he says as well that what's it called? What's it called? A hypostasis is just. I mean, the person is a hypostasis plus rationality, as he was saying, but he thinks hypostasis is an individualization of a nature.
It is. I mean, that's what the Cappadocians say.
Yeah, that's the point I was talking about as to why it has to be of a nature. And since it's not an individual of a nature, then it wouldn't be a hypostasis technically, but an incomplete one.
Insofar as it's just a particular, I would say it's a hypostasis. Obviously,
Right.
not a human hypostasis, but a soul.
I mean,
Because to be properly a human hypostasis, you need both parts in union.
if you just mean like by that incomplete hypostasis, then yeah. But if you mean hypostasis implicator, then no, only secundum quid.
Okay, because what I would say after this is that, what's it called? Since there's still like a particular existence after death, you would say that uh the person, not like as complete, obviously, but the existence itself continues, but it's not a human hypostasis, it's a soul.
Easy.
So
Mhm.
so as I would say from this that the soul would be simple, but the human hypostasis would be composite because it has parts, body and soul. Would you agree with that? That the soul itself is simple?
The soul itself is simple in a sense,
Yeah,
not
because
like absolutely
it's
simple.
not the whole. It's not the whole. Yeah, it's relatively simple. It's not the
Yeah.
whole, it's one of the parts that constitute it.
Mhm.
Okay. So if you apply this to the resurrection of a human, where his soul is reunited with the body, I would say, like, let's say the prosopon, like the person of me, it's no longer, like, after I'm resurrected, it's no longer just a soul existence, like a soul hypostasis. It's now a human existence because it's reunited.
Yep.
Would you agree with that?
well,
Like if
I
I were to
mean,
be resurrected.
yeah, but some people think that the subsistence of the soul is the same whether with the body or not, which I agree, even though I'm a corruptionist.
Just hold on. We agree. We're talking about something else here, just like an analogy. The
Oh my god.
But yeah, I was just saying I still don't think that's like addresses the objection, to be honest. Like
Well, I'm saying, well, I was getting there because now my question would be when you reunite the soul and body, like in the resurrection of a human, for example, like let's say Christ or something. I would say, does the soul itself become composite?
you said, does the soul itself become composite?
Yeah.
No.
Okay. And the next
The
question,
soul comes into composition, but the soul itself doesn't become composite.
yes, the next question would be obvious. I would say, does it gain a part in the union, or is it itself a part to the whole?
It becomes a part to the whole.
Okay.
Yo, isn't that
And
exactly what you guys say to escape composition? Is that it's a part to a whole,
composition.
so now the composition doesn't apply because the composition is on the part of the whole, not the part. That's literally identical to what I was saying with the set and its parts.
Well,
Hold on,
that's
my mom's
not.
calling me. I just wanted to make that point. Go ahead.
If you're saying the word simpliciter isn't the whole, but it's rather a part, you're just contradicting Maximus. Because Maximus applies the part to whole relation and says the word is the whole. And that the human flesh is constitutive of that. So Because if you're literally just giving the mia physi answer to account for that, it's not an hypostaton. Because Maximus says the word is the whole. But as I was going to say, after the reunification of the soul and body, the soul would remain simple, and it would compose the human hypostasis. It's not itself composed by the body. So now, if you apply this to the actual incarnation, it wouldn't be allowed for you to say that the divine hypostasis of the word was simple before the union, and then became composite after. Because what this would be analogous to is the hypostasis of the soul of me, for example, being simple after death and then becoming composite itself after me being resurrected.
No, I agree with that. This like the composition point. You already know I disagree with that. That's not really the thing I was contesting. It was more
Well,
just
that's
that
what you see.
transitivity
That's what
follows
I'm
upon
contesting.
distinction. Yeah, I know. I said in the beginning, like I'm obviously I don't hold this position, but I merely am just think you were wrong on a point such that transitivity follows with a formal distinction.
Okay, because what I'm critiquing, it's like his view would literally be analogous to this. It would be analogous to saying that after I die and when I resurrect, my soul becomes composite. Like that's literally what it would be analogous to saying.
Yeah, I'd agree.
So
If the
when they
position
say hypostasis was simple and then became composite, this is just going to be like incoherent. Because the composition itself of the divine hypostasis simpliciter already implies that there's going to be some part that was added.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm just saying, like, this is where I was disagreeing with you the whole part in the first place. I think the first way you went about it, which is talking about what's true of the hypostasis, is true of the it's true of the nature, even in a formal distinction. But obviously, as a Thomas, I don't hold the formal distinctions.
Bro, freaking
And I think what
Christian,
he
bro.
was,
He's coming the fucking buttons, bro.
I heard him say it earlier a little bit. I think he was saying that it's not internal. Like he said it was internal, but then sometimes he said it just gains. It just like the flesh just derives like subsistence from the word. He was like mixing those two views, but if that's the view he's taking, then I don't see what's actually different from this and the Assyrian model, like the Church of the East. I literally don't see the difference. Like, because what they confess is one person and two hypostases, with the human hypostasis deriving subsistence from the divine hypostasis.
You guys are fucking spamming.
So,
Run it back.
so if you put the hypostaton of the flesh as external to the divine hypostasis, you would just be saying that there's one prosopone, one hypostasis, and one hypostaton. Which it's literally only different and like I don't even know how to describe it. It's only nominally different at that point from the Assyrian Church.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I think the real composition view's cooked, but I just disagree with one of your ways of going about it.
I mean, yeah, there's two or three ways I like to go about it. I mean, I think there's already a problem if you say God intrinsically changed. Like, all of the fathers condemn that.
Well, I think they condemn that in a sense, not in the sense that like a Thomas would affirm.
Well, I would obviously give an entirely different objection to a Thomas, because you don't hold to the real composition. I would go with, like, I would argue that's just Nestorian. Because that's the
How
whole
so?
point of the Severian dilemma.
I was in Nestorian though.
Because it would be reduced to two particulars.
Do you think two things being particular is the same as saying Nestorianism? Because like hypostasis isn't merely to be particular, but to be a complete particular, because a hand is a particular existing thing, but it's assumed into the whole of the hypostasis.
Oh,
So it's
shit.
But
not
the
called
Nestorians themselves said that the flesh derives existence from the word.
So
So like all you would have is like a nominally different system. In reality, it's just the same thing.
well then are you talking about the Nestorianism condemned at Chalcedon? Or
The one condemned at Ephesus. Chalcedon, like I don't think Chalcedon was even accurately representing Nestorius. Nestorius said one person and two natures, and that he doesn't separate the natures and the sonship. He called it a blasphemy to say two persons and stuff like that.
I
Wait,
think
if you read-
this I think this notion is confirmed in Bazaar of Herculitis in Book 2, Part 2, I think.
Yeah, even in his fragments of John and what Severus cites of him, I mean, I honestly think, I obviously haven't read all of Nestorius, I honestly think if you read through Nestorius's corpus, I don't think you'd find anything that,
Yo,
like
Pink,
in
no
his
mouth,
Christology
running.
at least, that contradicts Chalcedonian Christology. I literally don't think you would.
Yeah, I want to say like so. You're saying that because he would posit two hypostasis, right?
No, he said one person and two natures. The issue
And one
we had with
hypostasis,
that.
right?
He says say therefore, like someone's asking him, like, say therefore what the hypostatic union is. Do you wish to regard a hypostasis as a person, as we speak of one ousia of the divinity and three hypostases, and understand person by
Oh,
hypostasis?
me and Christian.
Yeah, we're doing
Call
3v3.
therefore the prosopoic union hypostatic.
Yo, 3v3,
Yeah,
3v3,
like,
back out.
shut
Back
the
out,
fuck
up before
Add
I mute
Waki,
you.
add Waki and
Shut the
Obla.
fuck up.
Add
Three. Yo, add Obla.
And when you read Theater of Cyrus in his letter to John of Vega, he talks about
Yeah, I read that.
like he
He
talks
gave
about the
the
same
objection
thing.
about the creed, and he literally just
Where?
said they're using person as hypostasis.
Mm-hmm.
Or
Yo, you
hypostasis as
Oriental,
person, other way around.
you Oriental niggas are impressive when it comes to Christology. Y'all niggas talk about that shit for 8 hours.
Yeah, thank you.
Even Christology is not my main point of study. My main point of study is early Christian history, more of like ecclesiology.
No, but Oblak
Why
Thomas,
are you guys
like what do
fucking,
you
like,
think?
attacking him while
What do you
he's
think like Nestorianism is?
Well,
Yeah, that's what I
was gonna
wondered.
say, I
'Cause,
think
like,
I know there's like it talked about in two different ways. That's how I usually split it, is between like what
Yeah.
apparently Nestorius really taught, or versus what's like condemned.
oh, stop fucking double teaming.
Like what of Nestorius ideas was condemned. And I think
Yeah.
the Chalcedonian idea was condemned, but not the if this was a real position, the fact that there's one hypostasis and one person subsisting in two natures.
Because like would you say wait, repeat that?
Bro's mad.
Okay, so either like if you say like the Chalcedonian position, obviously I don't think that was condemned. But if you say it's quote unquote like that's what I call his quote unquote real position, if what they represent is accurate, and then the position condemned, which was the two hypostasis or two persons.
well, what I'm saying is that
No, he says
They
the
weren't-
prosopoic union is hypostatic.
Yo, this
You guys
nigga
double teamed
sucks.
each other.
Nigga got
I
hit
had
by
to
a,
see you.
nigga got hit by a
yeah,
sticky
because
note.
the whole issue of the condemnation of Nestorius was it's not that he himself outwardly professed two persons. It was that professing two natures necessarily leads to two persons, and therefore the antecedent is condemned because the consequent follows.
You think that how does that follow?
That two persons follows from two natures?
Yeah.
Because
I
the two
think,
natures are individual and concrete, and they are even
Wait,
applied
so what?
actions.
How does
You
that?
guys-
Wait,
I-
hold
I-
on. That doesn't
I was
matter.
gonna-
You know, all three persons could like literally incarnate into one body, and that's not a problem, right? There's not going to be like, in
What?
fact, they two or three. Like, how does there being two
We're not-
concrete natures
not talking
be
about
make it two persons?
Concrete. No. I think you're misunderstanding the point. When you're looking at
Like I heard he
like
said
his
that if there's two
interlocutors-
natures, there's two hypostases. That he just said.
Yeah, that follows.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that's true.
No, it
All right, when you're
doesn't.
talking about hypostasis, though,
There's
you
two
just talking about
particulars. Yeah.
you're just talking about there's particulars. That's it. That's just trivial.
That's
Like
what-
of course.
That's not trivial. If there's two particulars,
Wait,
because
what?
all a
If
person is,
hypostasis-
I'll explain it. All a
Oh wait,
person is,
sorry. If you meant person, then yeah, I still disagree. Like what? That still doesn't follow.
all a person is a particular hypostasis that's rational. So if the divine word, if that's a hypostasis and it has rationality, that's a person. Now, if that is different in number from the Son who is on earth, Christ, Jesus Christ, he is also a rational human, a rational human hypostasis. Therefore, he would also be a rational human person. If you're making a distinguishment in number
That's
between
not
those
true,
two
bro.
things,
What are you
you have two
talking about?
persons.
Exactly. It's obviously
Bro,
not true.
that's
Your
not true.
left-handed, your
First off,
right-handed.
you could have two of the human
You want me
natures.
to
Have
send
a.
you? You
I mean,
want
you
me to
can
send
send
you
to
what
me. I just want
Saint-Gregory of Nyssa
demonstrations.
says?
I don't. Bro, I hate it when people do this. I don't like just listen to a father. I want the father to demonstrate it. Like, don't just tell me what the father says.
I gave the
Look,
demonstration.
I'm rebuttaling it. I'm not accepting that. I'm telling you why. Because you could have two natures, two of the concrete hypostasis in the sense of them being, a primary substance relate towards Christ, and that's it. And Christ could still remain
What
a,
do you
a,
think
a
Christ
person.
is?
Dude, are you gonna respond to what I said, or are you gonna ask me a question?
I'm asking you a clarifier. What do you think Christ is when you say the substances relate to Christ?
I'm talking about the set hypostasis, the person, obviously. So
So
can you now
what
respond?
is he? Is he a third hypostasis that's different from the divine and human one? What do you mean?
What are you talking about? I'm talking about the divine person, Christ himself, and has a human nature relating towards him. I'm saying you could have two human natures relate towards him and still yet not be two persons or two hypostases that you try to commit us to. So can you now respond?
I mean, I don't even know like what you're saying. You said how the two hypostases relate to Christ. He is the union of those two things. What do you mean?
I'm talking about the divine person. Yeah, like the divine person, Jesus Christ, like
After the
second person of the
union,
Trinity. It
after
doesn't
the
matter.
union, or before the union?
It doesn't matter.
No,
I'm
it
just
does
giving you a
matter.
rebuttal. No, it doesn't. It
No,
could
it
be
does
prior
matter.
or after, and you're still one person.
Before the union, no, before the union, there's no relation because he's not human before the
Bro,
union.
no duh. I'm talking about the person itself, right? Prior and after is still gonna be one person. So that doesn't matter. Look, I
What are
just
you
want you to
talking
respond
about?
to what I want you to respond to what's being said. You just said that there's gonna be a commitment of our review if there's two hypostasis in regards to like a nature or primary substance. And that's gonna like be committed in our review according to I guess whatever type of philosophy you think you adhere to.
Leo says it verbatim.
Bro, you know what I'm saying? No demonstration. He's just saying like the father says it, the council says it. Like, bro, demonstrate it. Like respond to what I said.
I'm saying hold on, if your own like fathers are saying this
I just
as
want you
per
to
their
demonstrate what
view, that's
I
just
just want
gonna
you to
mean,
demonstrate it.
hold on, that's just gonna mean that that's what their view is. Like, what do you mean?
Okay, good for you. Okay, good, good.
If
Now you know if
if
I was an
if
atheist,
your
I wouldn't.
fathers if your fathers say it, then that's what the view is. I hate to break
So
it to you.
you're not gonna respond. You're just gonna tell me my father said you're not gonna respond.
I'm not saying I'm gonna send church fathers from my perspective that merely condemn it. I'm
Hey,
saying
brother, I just want you to respond to my argument.
Leo himself says there's two
Bro, Barack Obama
substances.
could have said it, bro. Like, let's say Barack Obama said there's two. Like, now can you respond?
Respond to what? What are you talking about?
Barack
You want me
Obama.
to demonstrate that as per the Chalcedonian view, there's a commitment to two hypostases. I can easily do that. I can show you Leo verbatim saying that there's two substances. Or that there's one
I
substance
didn't
and
ask you
another
that.
substance. Which Irenaeus verbatim condemns, by the way.
But you're talking about that fragment, yeah, that
Dude,
Irenaeus quote, that
nobody's
fragment you're
asking for that.
talking
Is this
about is
guy,
like,
yo, bro, this guy
hold on, hold
lost.
on. Bro, I
Yeah, I
don't
was
know.
gonna say
I think
Juno.
I know that fragment or where that comes from. I don't know, like, where this quote comes from and from
It's a
Irenaeus'
frag.
corpus. Yeah, it's a
Bro,
fragment. But that
we don't need
fragment
that.
just
Give
pops
back
up
on
in, like,
track.
a 13th century library, dude. Like, I have no idea where this quote comes from.
Bro, just get back on track. Look, we didn't ask you to quote.
Hold
We asked
on.
you to respond to a set statement that I
I
made.
don't know if it's a fragment. I know he had
I'm
something.
99% sure, like, when you're talking about this statement where he talks about the condemnation of speaking of, like, there being two substances after the union, I know that quote you're
I think it's
talking
an
about.
against heresies. I don't think
Can
it's
you
either.
start the game, please? Can you start the
No, that
game?
quote, yeah, I'm pretty sure
Wait,
the
Oblak, are you playing?
fragment
No,
Let me
I could
check.
join. You wanna?
that
Well,
I'm not
yeah, I
that
wanted to
quote,
join.
that fragment that's supposedly from, I don't think that's
No, it's
actually
not a
in
I
there
can
fragment.
because
say one more
It's not
without
a.
you.
wait,
No,
where in against heresies
one
because
is
I
a
know there's
fragment.
one,
The
yeah,
one I'm
one is
talking
a
about is not a
fragment.
fragment. This one is against
Oh,
heresies, book 3, chapter 16.
look through chapter 16. I know the quote you're talking about. I've heard of it. I'm not
Wait,
sure. I'm not willing to discern or like speak of like whether or not it does, but I know there is a fragment. But I know that Irenaeus' view of speaking of two substances after the union is still kind of like debated. and
Well,
it's not really exactly
he
clear.
takes the stoic mixture view, which is literally like a compound. Like there's no getting around it.
Okay, Juno,
Yeah.
do you think that like any particular thing would constitute a hypostasis?
Any particular thing
It,
would
it depends.
constitute hypostasis. Well, it depends. Like as I was saying earlier, like the soul is a particular existence. Like after we die, but it doesn't constitute a human hypostasis until there's an actual union.
I didn't
So
say
no.
human hypostasis. I just said a hypostasis. Like, do you think if like the soul is a good example? After death would just be a hypostasis.
If insofar as just a particular, sure. Like it's a particular existence, but it's not a full instantiation of its proper universal, because you need the body as well.
Okay. So then, yeah, that's fine. Obviously, it's not like a human hypostasis, but can it be properly called a hypostasis or only secundum quid?
In the sense it's a particular, I would say you can say it's hypostasis. I don't think there's a problem with that, like colloquially.
So only secundum quid, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
So then, the Chalcedonian view would only be secundum quid, right?
Secundum quid of what?
Because like it's a particular, but it's a particular.
Oh wow!
It's one in the same particular as the divinity, because
But
the
Nestorius
particular
says that too. Nestorius says that too. He was condemned for it. It's not fine because he was condemned.
That's obviously like disputed, but you're saying it logically entails. How does it logically entail that?
Because if the two individual things are, for example, Leo says, you've probably heard of this a million times. The word performs what belongs to the word, and the flesh performs what belongs to the flesh. So when you apply,
Give me him.
Yo, chill. When you apply certain actions, let's say when you predicate certain actions to these things, they're gonna be their own subjects because you're separating them in action. Does that make sense?
Separating them in action does not constitute separate subjects, because that same thing can be said of the soul and the body. The soul.
Wait, what do you mean? How? Like, do you not believe Christ has an operation of the divine and the human?
The soul and body operate in the same action when they're in union.
No, they don't. What the fuck are you talking about?
Wait, do you think? Wait, hold up. Do you think the intellect senses, like it feels something? Are you serious?
You don't think? Oh, but
wait, you think like the intellect has like a nervous system? Like, what are you talking about?
Chill. You don't think that the soul and body work in one operation after the union?
No.
This is the Neophysite view. This is a Neophysite view.
What do you make of Cyril, bro?
Oh, wait, this is just Neophysitism. They believe there's one energeia, or they believe like there's one like operation.
Oh nah.
Yeah, this is the Neophysite.
We're talking about like logically speaking, the soul and the body are distinct. I haven't read Cyril, so I'm not gonna dispute.
They're only distinct after the.
What I'm saying. Wait, let me finish what I'm saying. What I'm saying is logically, this position isn't absurd because the soul and the distinct unless their operations are distinct. Whatever is distinct in first act is distinct in second act, because second act follows upon first.
What do you mean?
The fathers say,
bro, stop this father's thing, bro. Are y'all like robots, like father robots? Like, yo, look, like if they don't demonstrate it, then right there is set and put. There's no set reason to adhere to it. Like that's
it's dogmatically stated at Ephesus.
What?
You don't really have
they
a choice.
demonstrated though. That's the thing. Like you're a father bot. I'm not saying. Hold on. No one's saying you don't.
You don't have a choice though. It's dogmatically
let me finish
stated
what I
at
said.
Ephesus.
Stop interrupting me. Look, no one's saying not to adhere to the fathers. No one's saying that. I said that if there's not a set demonstration, there's not something that needs to be adhered to. You're not telling us why we need to adhere to it. You're just saying, oh yeah, just because so. Dude, the consensus of the fathers. Bro, stop interrupting me. Wait, bro. I didn't say you particularly. I'm speaking in general. Look, the consensus of the fathers, no one's going to doubt that is true, but there's the said demonstration about it. You don't just read a father saying X, Y, and Z, and therefore that's it, period, call it A. Like, demonstrate it, bro. You just said that, by the way, you just said that the said operation of the said intellect, you're gonna now be committed to saying the operation of the intellect is the same as the body, which is obviously false. Nothing of the body or nothing of the physical matter has any operation of the soul of intellect.
Mm.
It doesn't do
I
anything
didn't
essentially
say
But there's
intellect.
going to be discernibility.
obviously they're discernible as per their own natural quality.
Wait, so
What I'm
their
saying is
options are
that in the
discernible.
union, I'm not done. What I'm saying is that in the union, they act. How do I put this? They act as one kindred operation after the union. So it's one operation from two, not from two and into. It's one from two.
What do you
I
think?
mean, we have first. We literally have apostolic fathers.
In
saying
what
this.
sense are they
Like,
one?
This
They're
goes to the
one.
apostles.
Yeah, I'm saying, in what sense are they one? They're only, you can only be said to be one insofar as they're performed by one
What are?
subject. It doesn't mean they're like one and the same. The two operations.
Yeah,
The
hope's
two
good.
operations,
Hope is
I
good. Hope is
know.
good.
they're one in operation.
Yeah, what do you think operation means?
What is the? Do you know the? What's it called? Do you know the statement of amendment by Lepers, I believe? Is that his name?
No.
I think it was
Leporius?
signed by Augustine. Let me double check, but I do think that he talks about this idea. Or
Yeah,
he
well, I was
signed
gonna
off
say,
on
like,
it.
you're
You
talking
probably
about
mean to
logically.
say
Like, obviously, I
you
haven't read what you're talking about on this, so bringing up like the authorities are irrelevant when we're talking
No,
about strict
no, I
logical
think it's
reasoning.
relevant. No, I think it's
Logical reasoning
relevant, but
doesn't
not.
follow.
No. I think it's relevant, but not like just because he says so. I think he has like an explanation for it. I could be wrong though. I do remember
Yeah, 'cause,
reading
like,
something from Augustine on
I
the
can give an
operations.
example. I can give an example for one operation.
Oh, is
For
it death
example,
so you
yeah, I'm
probably
saying
mean to
define
say that the
operation.
said
one good
operations are connected.
example.
You're
One
not
good
defining
example
what
is
you're proving.
Christ.
You can't prove
I'm
before you
giving an
like define.
example. I'm giving an example. One example I would say is Christ when he walks on water. We would say this
What
is
the hell?
one. We would say this is one theandric act
Yeah,
because
that
he's
has
doing
nothing to,
something.
bro. That's a
He's
blunder,
doing.
bro.
He's
Wait,
doing
are
Has
you
something
a
nothing to
that's
do with
not
the
wait,
soul.
are
related.
you I'm confused. I thought you were
Um,
like are you a Miaphysite? And
me?
I'm very confused. Yeah, I'm like very.
Yeah, I'm me a physite. This is what we've been arguing about the whole time.
Bro,
Okay,
you just said it
really?
yourself
I
though.
thought
That's
you
a
were talking
theandric
about like
act.
Scotus and his like conceptual like bro, what?
No,
But wait,
I was
hold up,
just
Juno.
taking
Juno.
a SCOTUS definition of one of our terms earlier because I
Wait,
prefer it.
Juno, what you just described was just a theistic act. That's not going to be an act that shows you a set operation being univocal
Wait,
or the
repeat
same
that.
amongst the soul.
Repeat the first
What
part you cut out.
you just spoke about a theistic act. That's what you just spoke about
A
Christ walking
theandric
on the
act.
water. Yeah, a theandric
Yeah,
act. You know, I know.
that's my
Yeah,
position.
yeah, but that doesn't tell
A
us.
theandric
Wait, hold up,
act
hold
is
up, hold up, hold up.
constituted
That
by a
doesn't
theandric
tell
energy.
us. Dude, I know what it's constituted by. Just listen, wait. That doesn't tell us though that the operation of the set soul and body are the same. You know that, right? Because
In and
a
of
theandric act
themselves,
is not.
in and of themselves, I would agree. I'm saying in the union.
But I'm always use that.
I said in the union. I clarified that. That was the first thing I said.
Wait, so you're just saying in the union, the operation of the body and the soul are the same?
Yeah, they act in one operation. One.
Okay, but that's still false. Let me just ask you
Theandric
simple.
element.
Look, that's just simply false though. Like, do you believe that the
Have you
soul
read
could,
Zero? Hold on. Be
bro?
careful
Oh
what you
my
say
gosh,
next.
Wait,
yo, son.
hold on. What? Walkie, are you saying that the
Like, hold
subsistence
up, bro.
of
Let me
the
finish.
soul? Okay.
Look, there's certain operations of the set soul that are really distinct from the operations of the body. What you're probably trying to say is that they're united insofar as that, like, when there's an operation of the body, it can connect or transfer onto. Simply saying something absurd, because the operations of the souls are going to be proper activities of intellect and will. That's not proper to the body. What's proper to the body is sensitive appetites, like
I'm
moving
saying there's
sensations.
certain actions. I'm saying there's certain actions that are proper of both, not just one or the other. So that is like a theandric action.
Okay, so, but then it only must be of analogy of proportion. Like, what could possibly be so, if not an analogy of proportion? Like, can you give me an
What do you
example?
mean? What you want me to give you an analogy?
No. I'm saying that you said there are some examples of the set operations being one and the same amongst both. So
In
I'm
us?
asking for such a case. Yeah, I'm
In
asking for
us?
such a case. Right.
Like
Yeah.
literally, like literally just walking, dude. If you walk, that require like you and your intellect, you have to will that you want to like walk or grab something or just do anything. That activates, even like just scientifically, electrical signals are sent to that place in your body you want to use, and therefore that body part is used.
Wait,
Like
but even in
you have
what you
both
just
mind
said
and body
just
working
proved my
here.
point. Wait, but what you just said just proved my point. Let me just ask you: do you believe the act of willing is the same as walking itself?
Uh, no, the walking is constituted by the willing to do it.
Okay, so then you didn't give me an example where both the operation of the body and the soul are the same. You just gave me an act
I
where
did. What do you
the
mean?
no, all you did was just give me an act where the soul informs the body to walk by willing walking. You didn't tell me that they're the same.
Yeah,
Doesn't they're not the same?
but your mind has to actively will that the whole time you're doing that.
Well, that's not true. Your mind just
The very
passively.
moment, what? No,
Bro, you think when you're
even
walking all the time,
scientifically,
like
the
you
very
gotta like.
moment,
All right, go
yes,
ahead.
the very moment you don't will, you are actively willing to do this thing, you stop walking. That's how like brain waves work.
You first said no, not will. That was the first thing you said. You first said no. But look, if you're
No
not
to
saying no, like
what?
obviously that's a whole different thing. But still, that doesn't show you that the operations are the same.
I said no to what?
I said no as in like knowledge, knowing, not like no as in a rejection. So look, that still doesn't tell you though that they're the
I
same.
said
Willing
in
is
your
not the
mind, I
same.
said in your mind you have to will something. I didn't say knowledge once.
You said that you have to know this thing consistently, and then you switched it to saying will. But look, that's just
No,
meta. You don't gotta
I
worry
said
about
you
that.
have to
All right, it's
actively
meta. It's
will
meta.
that.
It's meta. All right, it's just meta. But look, that still doesn't tell you that the operations are the same because willing is not the same thing as walking.
Are you
Those are
serious,
two.
dude?
Those are those are two different operations. Willing is not the same thing as walking.
I'm saying that when you walk, you have to actively, in your mind, be also like willing that thing.
Sure, that could be
Because when you
granted, but that
will
still doesn't
something,
tell
when
you
you
they're the
will to
same.
do something in your mind, the waves, like the electrical signals, they get sent to that part of the body, and you do that thing. That is an
Bro,
example where you have both body and mind, or body and soul, whatever you want to put it, working in one action.
wait,
That's
but
what we
notice what
mean
you're
by a
doing.
theatric act. Like
Notice what you're doing. That's
for
not one
example,
action.
I
Look,
can give an example in Christ.
wait, hold up,
When
hold
he
up. You already
walks
gave
on
one, bro.
water.
Like before you go to the next, just wait.
Well,
Like,
this
hold
is
up.
an example in us. I'm trying to give it like a relevant
Wait, I
example
got
in
no
Christ.
shotgun though. Like, let me respond to the point. Like, look, that still didn't show it. You just admitted it yourself
That's how we
that
define it, so
willing.
that
But
will
how
show.
about this? How about this? Because I think like maybe if we first define what constitutes like a act or like one energeia,
Look, an act is just simply, or actually,
one
operation
happening
is a
like or operation
yeah,
like
look, an operation is a
through.
set faculty which is proper to a mode of being, which allows for a certain activity. So, for example, the sense
Mm-hmm.
faculties perform an operation of sensation specific to what type of sense faculty it is, whether that be the hands, the eyes, the ears, whatever it may be. So, in his case, he's saying that the set actions of the soul and the body are going to be the same. But even in his own example, he just demonstrated that they're not because the action of willing is different from the action of walking. He just keeps on telling me that like, oh, every time when you're walking though, like you gotta consistently think about it, like it's all happening within one action. But that's not true because the action of walking is really distinct from the action of willing. So he's still telling me there's two operations. That's just proving my point even more. Those are
All
two
that
different
shows is a
operations.
difference. All that shows is an incremental difference in
So they're
quality.
not
I
the
don't
same.
deny that. I'm saying in you. Obviously, there's a distinction in and of themselves. I said in
Wait, but
union.
bro, are you forgetting what you said?
I said when acting in union.
Have you?
Bruh, stop it, bro.
I
O block, come
think
back, bro. This dude's tripping.
there's a quotation from Saint Gregory of Nyssa where he talks about since in Christ the human intention is one thing and the divine another. He who speaks first does so as human, saying what is appropriate to the weakness of human nature, as one who has made our sufferings his own. And then like I think
Yeah,
this
No, I'm
is
not
and
rejecting that. I'm not rejecting that. I
I
don't know
don't
if y'all
even like
forgot what
this
he said.
topic. I don't even like this
Like,
topic of one will versus two wills because it's not even a topic my church was historically involved in. That's entirely a Chalcedonian topic, by the way.
bro, Yo, are we losing the plot? Like, oh, like, are you here, bro? Somebody, like,
Yeah,
what?
I'm here. Yeah, I was gonna say
Bro,
that's
did
just
he,
until
did he, or did he not say that the operations of the soul and body are the same?
In union.
yeah, yeah, in union,
What?
yeah.
Where does this? What?
But what does
That's the
what
first
does
thing I
why
said,
do
dude.
what
I
does
said in
saying
union.
Walkie, can we talk somewhere else?
So
Hold
what?
on, he's in the middle of something.
what does him
This
being
makes
in
Holla,
union
bro,
have to
holla.
do with anything though? What does in
I'll have
union have to? It just seems like a buzzword.
because when
I
they're
already,
made
I already
because when
responded to
they're
that.
made one because when they're made one, they're now inseparably attached to each other. In and of the way, like, obviously once you
Yeah, but
die,
what
like, they
constitutes an
get separated, but in
operation? Like
Christ it's
what? Like
different.
I need to understand what constitutes like an operation because if an operation is just like something that you act through, then there's like many operations at this point.
Operation follows from nature.
It falls from nature, so it's necessary. They're like it's like conjoined, right? Okay.
Yeah, and
So
in
since
Christ the
Yeah.
nature is compound. So that would also follow that the operation is
Yo, what's the
kindred
code,
or
bro? I'm
compound,
trying
as
to join
Cyril
this
says.
game.
I mean, I know that's
Yes,
what you're
sir.
like,
Yes, sir.
but
Yeah.
Juno, you understand that like it's
Hold
not
on.
just the nature which it flows from, but also the faculties of that nature. So you have like the difference between a remote and
You
proximate
gotta hop on.
principle by which of operation. So like this is our point. Like the remote, what's it called? The proximate principle can be distinct, as in, i.e., the soul or the body, and thus it would constitute a different operation because the proximate principle is different, even if the remote principle is one and the same, or the nature.
If you're just talking about like the distinction in principle, I really don't have an issue with that. Like Severus, I forget the passage, but he says in one passage that Christ showed two wills. Like this whole issue of one will or two will, it's not an issue like within my paradigm. That whole
We're not talking
conflict
about
arose in Chalcedonian views.
we're not talking about like one will or two will here. We're talking about like differing operations. You were saying that differing
That has to do with
operations
will.
would entail different hypostasis or
Yeah,
substances.
I said
But
if you're saying that one hypostasis does one thing and another hypostasis does another thing, you're already picking out two things with different actions. And what would
yeah,
those two things be? Two hypostases. That's the
yeah, you're
category
saying
they're
two
already put
things
in.
with different actions would entail different hypostases, but we just pointed out how the soul and body have two different actions, and thus according to you would be two different hypostases.
What? That's not the point. I'm saying, dude,
Well,
because for us
that
they're made
directly
one.
is the point.
Yeah,
Hello?
Because for us they're made one. In your guys' view, they aren't
You're
one
saying
with each
they're
other.
made one because there's one remote. Like the one remote does not say that they're like one in the same operation in the sense we're talking about. Because to say the operations are one merely because there's some unity, then we can say the operations of the two natures are one because there's some unity under that view. I don't think that's what Leo
That's
meant. I
what the
think Leo
fathers
meant
say.
no, that's not what Leo meant though.
Oh my
Like what
gosh.
Leo meant when he said one in the same operation was merely saying that these two principles like they differ, as in what's it called the operation of the humanity would be like to eat and to sleep, but the operation of the divinity is pure actuality. So in this way, there would be two different operations. But clearly, in the
I'm
same
not
way Leo's
saying
speaking about it, you can say that the soul and body have two different operations
I'm
according
not
to the way
saying
Leo
Leo
speaks
said
of it. So then Leo
I'm
saying
not
that
saying Leo said one
Leo's statement
operation. That's
entails
what I'm
two
saying.
hypostasis. You're saying Leo's
Um,
statement entails two hypostasis, right?
yeah, because he says that the word performs what belongs to the word and the flesh performs what belongs to the flesh. And he specifically calls them one and another. So he's picking out two different things. And
Yeah, as
just by
in
what they're
nature.
called,
The soul and the
no, the
body can be
word,
called two different things. Hello?
he said, no, but the word is a hypostasis. It's not just
He's
some
talking
random
about the
like floating
divinity.
around nature.
He's talking about the
No, he says
divinity
the
and the
word.
humanity.
No, he says the word. He doesn't say the divinity. He says the word. That's my whole
You have to show me
contention.
that.
He's picking out hypostases. He's not saying the divinity.
Show me
I can
that,
show
bro.
you it.
And
Yeah, I
even
got
then,
you.
that could be like you could speak of the word in two different senses, even in like Thomistic theology.
He doesn't even make that clarification. Like I just say that's ad hoc.
Say when he goes on to talk about things proper to humanity. when he talks about the operation of it.
I said it's ad hoc to because you're saying he's talking about the divinity and humanity. Now I'm gonna show you that he's talking about hypostases. And now
Yeah, to say that
you're sort of backtracking that and saying, well, it can be interpreted this or that way. Well, he doesn't say that. What he says, I just
saying
sent
he
it
doesn't
inside
say
chat.
that is just merely to assume your interpretation. One and two. What I'm saying is that
Well,
well,
no,
the
it's just to
further
read
him
him.
talking about, let me finish. When he further talks about like the distinction in the operations, and he speaks about the natures, this points to my
Holy
interpretation
shit,
of
I'm
what he's
smacking
actually
these
saying.
niggas. No, sorry,
Yo,
I'm playing again.
screen share, bro.
Hold on, I can't right now. I'm on my
I sent
phone.
it inside chat, by the way.
Well, if I keep getting
Do you get what I'm
2v1,
saying?
Can you repeat that?
oh my gosh, like why are you focusing on me? Oh my gosh, kill Hope.
Holy shit, this nigga's getting
No, but
fucking
doesn't
tapped, nigga. Oh my gosh, nigga, get the fuck out my game.
Bro,
Oh, look at this
bro,
gay
team up
ass.
on him.
Look at this gay ass
is
nigga.
hard.
You heard me?
But you
Team up on
guys
him,
like this verbatim, yeah, but this from Leo, like it verbatim contradicts like all the fathers. They say there can be no one in another, and that you can't have two natures and attribute these properties. Even
That's
Gregory of
just
Nyssa.
equivocation.
Wait.
What's equivocation?
The sense in which the fathers condemn and Leo condemns, because then you would have to say that, well, they don't think that the soul and the body
All right,
are
Hope.
distinct.
Wait, Hope, don't kill me.
The fathers condemn the Nestorians, which is literally. I'm sorry, but if you read the corpus of Nestorius, you would not find one contradictory thing to your Chalcedonian Christology. You just wouldn't.
There you go.
Yo, why aren't you?
Like it's just the same thing.
Like I just
Wait,
provided her. If you're
wait,
just gonna
O-Block.
scream, well, the fathers taught it and not address the objection, then that's fine. You trying to hop on? Bro,
I'm
O-Block,
addressing the
if he calls
objection.
the flesh
Yo,
Jesus Christ,
I
hop
would
on this
disagree
shit
because
right now.
I think overall the tradition is clear. Like when you read people
Hope,
like
kill
Saint
him.
Basil the
Hope, kill
Great,
him.
Eugenius of
O-Block, hop
Alexandria,
on
and
this shit, bro.
Maximus of
These niggas getting
Constantinople,
fucking slammed, nigga.
when they talk about like what constitutes a hypostasis, it's just going to be like a particular
Hope, kill
idiomata.
him.
Get the fuck out of here,
A
nigga. He
Yeah,
particular
calls the flesh
exactly. Sleep,
Jesus
sleep,
Christ and
exactly.
distinguishes it
And
Oh
from
my
the word.
Chalcedon,
god, Hope.
and Chalcedon says there's two natures with their own idiomata, correct? And the
Thank Jesus.
No!
Thank Jesus.
Saint Basil the Great, I
This
think,
fucking
when
piece of
it's
shit. Y'all niggas had a
yeah,
2v1
and
me.
that's a serious issue because the
Yo, why you guys
Chalcedonian
teaming?
Creed,
I ain't never
the
1v1
Chalcedonian
this dude.
Creed says that Christ exists in two natures, and they each have their own idiomata. I think in the English it says they each have their own peculiar properties preserved, but it says idiomata.
Or, yeah, you render
Yeah,
like
but Saint Gregory of
Damn it,
Nyssa,
bro.
almost verbatim says that if there's a certain heterogeneous nature alongside like the divine one with its
Yo,
own
O-Block, join, bro.
idiomata, there's two sons. Like he even says, if there's another nature with its idiomata. And as you said, even the later Chalcedonian
Let me change
saints,
my character.
they,
This nigga's
they
gonna be
all
gay
agree
ass.
that what constitutes a hypostasis
Fucking great
is nature plus idiomata. And that's
Let me fuck
exactly
this
what the
shit up, bro.
Chalcedonian Creed says. There's two natures with their own idiomata.
Everybody
pretty
Yeah, but the
3v1.
idiomata has to be incommunicable. The thing that the
Milwaukee.
humanity has is not incommunicable and it doesn't constitute its own whole. Like the
how do you
hand, for example,
what's your basis
goes
for
back
that?
into like this goes back into the hand thing. Like what this hand has is
What's
not
your
communicable
basis?
to.
Like
Let me
we're making
finish. Let me finish. Let me finish. This hand does not have the same idioms or cannot communicate the same idioms to a different hand. But even though it's an individual in that way and it's subsisting, this does not mean that it's a hypostasis because there's something more complete.
Is it a nature with its own idiomata?
You said, is it a nature with its own idiomata?
Yes.
No, it's a thing with its own idiomata, like a part of a nature.
No, the human nature and the divine nature. Are they natures with their own idiomata?
What do you mean by idiomata?
peculiar
Like
property.
their own peculiar properties, such as
What do you
like
mean by
the divine
peculiar
nature,
properties?
being impassible, things like that.
No,
What do
don't
you,
hurt me. Don't fight me.
you
Don't fight
mean
me.
unique properties?
Don't fight me.
Yeah. Like when like it's like the same notion when
Oh
I
my
think Saint Basil the
god.
Great he's writing, like essence like that of which I think is in general like a common nature and by his own characteristics, i.e., like individualizing properties that make one instance distinct from another of the same nature.
I'm saying, obviously we can say like peculiar problem. I'm asking, are you talking about it in the sense of distinguishing it from like in a genus, or distinguishing it from other things in general, or like distinguishing it from everything else?
What do you mean by every? That's very vague. Like everything else proper to what?
Like every other hypostasis.
Every other hypostasis.
Guys, don't fight each other. Don't fight each other.
I think when you look at, I think Maximus of Constantinople in Epistle 13, he says, a hypostasis is a certain essence with idiomata, or like these certain individualizing.
Not specific. Like you guys are just going
for his life.
Without getting specific. We're trying to get specific as in philosophy.
Get the fuck out of here.
Wait,
I wasn't.
You guys
so
would have to assume your view of the idiomatum. So when we're talking about incommunicable properties, then obviously you can say in a sense, sure, but not strictly speaking. Because strictly speaking, you can have incommunicable properties without it constituting its own hypostasis, as in the humanity, regardless if you're miaphysite or diophysite, the humanity has quantity which is incommunicable. This humanity's quantity cannot be the same as a different humanity's quantity. That's what distinguishes.
Yeah, but your whole
humanity.
tradition,
And then they would be one and the same things.
They don't even go that far. Your whole tradition says a hypostasis is nature plus
Irrelevant.
idiomata.
We're talking about the logical consistency.
What I'm more so concerned about is what you're actually committed to as a Catholic or as an Eastern Orthodox or even as a Protestant. Most classical Protestants hold the Catholic.
Oh my god, bro! I don't got time for y'all, bro. This is just gonna win.
Yeah, I'm done.
I think from that framing, maybe.
I hold the St. Thomas. Like as a Catholic, you can hold the St. Thomas.
Wait, Oblak. If he calls the flesh Jesus Christ and distinguishes it from the Word, would you agree it's two hypostases?
He said if he calls the humanity Jesus Christ and distinguishes it from the Word.
Mm-hmm.
No,
Yeah.
because Thomas can do the same thing.
So you can believe in the
Thomas
Word and
Aquinas-
Jesus Christ the man, hypothetically.
What happened?
So I could say there exists the Word and Jesus Christ the man.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, like see, it's literally just Nestorian. There's no
it's not
difference.
Nestorian because again, we're talking about
Nestorius taught the same thing.
We're talking about the same hypostasis. Well, that's not problematic.
Nestorius said the same thing.
Sure.
The condemnation of Nestorius was not for two hypostases. It was that what he was professing. It was that what he was professing led to it.
Oh my god.
Yo, get on the game, bro.
You can't demonstrate that bullshit.
The condemnation itself. I'm not concerned. Hold on. Just to be sure, I'm not concerned.
I don't even know.
Okay, before you hold on. Before
John,
you
I was
go,
finishing what I was saying to
not-
John. You cut me off in the middle. Like John, what I was saying was that talking about one and the same hypostasis in two different aspects. Like you can say the hypostasis insofar as it is in itself. You can say, yeah, then it's simple and it's identical to the divinity. Or you can speak about the hypostasis in a sense, which is what it's in union with as well, which would be the humanity. And in that case, sure, what's it called? You can't separate the two, distinguish the two. But insofar as speaking of the hypostasis in itself, yes, you can, because the hypostasis in itself is simple, while the humanity's composite.
Bro, maybe I'm just anti the language, dog.
Yo, Oblak.